Hi everyone, welcome back to Euron. From this video onwards, we are gonna start a fresh new interview series on the topic called as business analytics. So in this series, I'm thinking to have at least 100 to 150 questions, including basic level question, intermediate level question, and then advanced level questions as well. Okay, so having said that, let's start from the today's video, and this is your first question. What is the role of business analyst in modern organization? How has it evolved over the past decade? So whenever this kind of questions comes into the interview, you can tackle this question by understanding or by inferring it like the interviewer is asking about the roles and responsibility for you as a BA in the modern organization or in the current organization. So what is that is the meaning of this particular question, right? So you can answer this in such a way that from the past decades, the BA responsibilities or role has changed a lot, and then you can compare. So you can say earlier BA was only focusing on, you can say, business aspect. For example, taking the document, gathering the requirement from the business, and then passing it to proper team. And earlier BA was not focusing on the technical side of the entire solution. But from the recent in the modern organization or in the recent era, this role has changed drastically. Now organization is demanding not only the business aspect from the business analyst team or business analyst people, but they are also asking to have certain amount of technical knowledge as well. What kind of technical knowledge is required? So maybe a good BA should have the knowledge of maybe Excel, and then SQL, then you can say statistics. So when I say statistics, so not all the entire statistics, the only part required to have in the business side of the statistics, BA should have the understanding of that statistics for sure. Apart from that, a good BA should also have the understanding of basic SQL. He should also know how to design the schema in not very depth, but at least it should have the idea. Uh, if the BA, a good BA, has the knowledge on how to design the database, how SQL query works, a BA person can give the good input, and then they can communicate to other team members as well, like data analyst team, data scientist team, and similarly maybe data engineers team, that why we are designing the schema in such a way, why not other fields, why not this field, right? So a good BA can always communicate this with other team members, which is a mandatory requirement for the recent or modern organizations, right? So you can finally conclude in this way that a good BA or a BA is kind of in the modern organization is bridge between business side and technical side, both side. So be it be data analyst team, be it be your maybe data engineer team, data scientist team, software developer team, or CEO, CXOs, business analyst is gonna have in the center of all of this entire team. And the role, or you can say how it acts, basically it's gonna take the requirement from the business side, it's gonna understand the pain point of CEOs, CXOs, and then that point will be communicated properly by the BA to maybe data analyst. For example, if the problem required technical solutioning, then it can go to technical team. If the solution required only business side, then BA can take action on behalf of his own, or maybe go to some particular business team, right? So BA is gonna act bridge between all of this thing, and then basically whatever the requirement coming from the business side, BA is gonna pass those information to the proper technical team or a non-technical team. And not only pass those information, BA is also gonna sit with them. If the BA has technical knowledge, which is mandatory, so they can work with the solutioning part with the maybe data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, and all of those teams, right? And then finally bring a valuable solution for the organization. And once the solution is built, this is the last thing which BA also does, and this is very important, not a list thing. A very good communication skill is required, so that whatever solution they have built, they can present to CEOs, CXOs, right? And that is the role of the business analyst in modern organization, and it has evolved over the past decade. I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Business Analytics Interview Series. This is day 16, and here is your 16th question. How do you document business rules? Give example of complex business rules. Okay, so basically here we are talking about documenting the business rules apart from the requirements. So requirement is a different thing. Business rules are a different thing, right? If you are creating any feature, if you have multiple features along with those technical requirement, there is always gonna be business rules associated with it, right? Because whatever feature or whatever product you are trying to build, or whatever requirement you are trying to solve, there is always going to be business associated with it, right? If business is not associated with it, there no there is no point of building that kind of feature or product, right? So that's why for each and every product, some kind of business rule is always gonna be attached with it. And for this question, interviewer is always try to understand that what kind of business rule you will gonna be document and how you are gonna document it, right? So they want to understand your thought process on this. So you can always answer this question in such a way that in order to document the business rules, you are gonna use clear structure format, right? So maybe you can use decision tables. You can use decision tables, right? You can use rule catalogs, or you can use if then statement. Okay, if then statements in your PRD document, that if this is gonna happen, then you are gonna do this. Okay, or you can have a business table, right? If you see over here, also we can attach the table, right? You see from the templates, let me search the table. You can use the Miro board as well to capture your requirement, right? And you see you can use this template, and you can populate this kind of table. Now in the table you are going to write a business rule number 1, business rule number 2, business rule number 3, and you are always going to assign the unique ID for each and every business rule, so that it will be easy for you that if some conflict happen between some business rule 1 or maybe let's suppose business rule 10, then you can always check and then say, hey, there is a conflict between 1 and 2, 1 and 10. So always assign a unique ID so that you can understand. Okay, so these two things you can do. Apart from that, you can include example and edge cases. You can clarify complex scenarios by dev and QA team, right? So that is also possibility. And you can always validate with the stakeholders, right? You can link to process and user stories. You can ensure rule align with the workflow and acceptance criteria. So for example, if you are creating maybe some kind of automation, and that business rule is not supporting that automation, then maybe you have to change the automation thing, or maybe you have to change the business rule. Now generally automation or whatever technical thing you're doing, that changes according to the business rule, so they should align properly, right? If someone is saying we should give 10% discount if customer is older than 10 years, okay, so that will become one business rule. But if someone is saying no, we should give the discount if customer has bought more than 1 lakh rupees of item. Now there are two cases, right? Now this can be either or it can be both, or it can be one true only, right? So you have to always ask this clarifying question, because in a system wise manner you can build both of the things, right? In a technical way you can build both of the features, but which one is correct, which one is not correct, that is the validation you should always ask from your stakeholders, right? So these are the things you should you are gonna document under the business rule. Okay, now examples of complex business rules if I give you, so some example, let me write it over here. So one is dynamic pricing rule. For example, you are creating a website like let's suppose maybe Udemy or Coursera. If you ever have purchased any course from the Udemy or Coursera, in the different country and in the different time zone, they are gonna show you a dynamic pricing. It's not gonna be fixed pricing, right? If you see the same course from India or maybe from some different country, you are gonna see the different prices, and that's we call it as a dynamic pricing rule. Now there are multiple factors you can decide how you are gonna show this dynamic pricing. So one business rule can be so different based upon different country, right? Based upon different country. So this is one based on different country. So this is gonna be one you can say business rule, right? Another rule you can choose also, like maybe if demand is greater than some threshold value. Now this threshold value is gonna be given by obviously your a business stakeholder only. So if demand is gonna go greater than some threshold value, then also you should start showing the dynamic pricing. Okay, so this is one example. Another example if I give you, so loan approval logic. Okay, loan approval logic. Let's suppose you are creating a application, phone application or maybe web application for approving the loan for the bank, right? So what kind of logic, business logic you can use over here? So you can say approve only if credit score, right? Approve only if credit score is greater than, let's suppose, 700. So this is a business rule, right? So you need to properly document all of this rule, because once you are going to develop this product or feature, you will require this kind of logic, right? And that's why it is very necessary to note it down properly. Okay, third example if I give you, that e-commerce promotion. Let's suppose e-commerce promotion. Okay, let me cut this. So what is this e-commerce promotion? So for example, you can say that apply discount only if user is premium and cart value is greater than 2000 and item not already discounted. Okay, so this is a complex business rule, right? So you can say like apply the discount only if user is premium. Okay, this is one case. And we have attached multiple end conditions. So you can say and their cart value, okay, whatever they have added into the cart, the cart value should be greater than, okay, let's suppose 3000. Okay, yeah. And then item is not already discounted. So you need to check all of these three conditions. Item is not already discounted. In that case you should apply the discount. Okay, so this is for e-commerce platform. If you are building the or maybe your e-commerce, or maybe if you are working in the Amazon or any of those e-commerce websites or company, right? So over there you should always capture this kind of business logic, right? I hope you are able to understand this and you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 17 and here is your 17th question. How do you document requirements for data migration projects? Okay, so before answering this question, you should first understand the meaning of basically data migration project. So what are data migrations, right? Then only you will be able to give the answer for this particular question. So let me give you answer for what is data migration. So data migration projects are those projects where you simply migrate or move your data from one place to maybe another place or system, right? From one place to another place. So you're gonna move the data from one system to another system. Okay, so this is called as data migration project. Let me write it in this way, another system. Now what we generally do into this kind of projects, so basically we will have huge data, maybe less data, maybe massive data. It depends upon the scenario to scenario. So let's take a middle level of data. Maybe let's suppose 100 GB of data we have. This is not a very huge data, but at the same time this is not a very low data as well. And let's suppose you have this data into maybe Oracle DB. Okay, so this is a example of database. You have a Oracle DB, and now your new things are coming into the market, and your company want to move all of this data from Oracle DB to maybe let's suppose MongoDB. Why MongoDB? Because MongoDB provides you some other benefits, like it provides you vector search capability, it provides you advanced search capabilities, and you want to move from maybe structured data to unstructured data. Okay, let's suppose this is the requirement. and that's why you want to move your data from Oracle DB to MongoDB. So this will become a data migration project. So in this kind of projects, how we are going to document our requirements, right? So in order to gather the proper requirements for the data migration project, you should always define the migration objective and scope, right? For the given example I have given you what is the objective and scope, what data is being moved. So you need to ask this, what data is being moved, the size of the data, right? Size of the data, volume of the data, velocity of the data, each and everything, basically three V's. Okay, if you have if you know about these three V's, so velocity, okay, velocity, volume, volume and variety. Okay, variety of the data, not clarity, it's variety of the data. So these three V's are important to know, that at which speed this data is coming and we need to move it, what is the volume, so size of the data, and then variety, what kind of data it is, a structured data, unstructured data. So in structured data you will have a tables, right? In a unstructured data you will have images, you will have raw text, you will have PDFs and whatnot. You can also have images, right? So those things are come under the unstructured data. So you should always know this thing. Then you should identify in scope and out of scope data. So which data you want to move. Okay, so in scope means which data you want to move, and out scope means which data you don't want to move, right? So you need to identify this properly, right, in the data migration project. Apart from that, you should always understand what is the source and target system analysis, right? Source and target system analysis you should always do. Why? Because you need to understand the source data structure and target data models. You should document schema, format and dependency, right? If I have given the Oracle DB over here example, so Oracle DB is what? It's a database which store the data in tabular format, right? Tabular format. So this will become its schema, right? Schema. Whereas when I talk about MongoDB, so MongoDB is a unstructured data, right? It stores the data in an unstructured way, in a form of documents, right? Unstructured way. So you need to have this schema, how you are going to map this schema to that unstructured way. So you need a mapping, right? You need a proper mapping. Once you have this mapping, we call it as a migration rules, okay, and logic. Migration rules and logic. So once you have this, then only you will be able to migrate it properly. So a mapping dictionary or migration rule or logic is required, right? So this is you are going to document into your PRD document. Then you are also going to talk about data quality, identifying cleaning rule, duplicating, how you are going to handle the duplication, how you are going to handle the missing values, right? So basically you can say data quality you are going to document in the PRD. Apart from that, you are also gonna validate and reconciliation criteria, define how success will be measured, right? So for this data migration, how will be the success you are gonna measure, right? How will be success measured, right? For example, if you are able to migrate the data, but if you are not able to migrate the data in a proper way, or maybe you are missing something, in that case your success is not you can say 100%. So you have to define the success criteria over here, that when we can say that yes, the data is migrated, so that success criteria is required and you are gonna document it properly, right? So success criteria is required over here. Then you are also gonna have the risk and compliance requirement, right? Let's suppose if you are moving the data to MongoDB, in between some attack will happen, how you are gonna secure your data. So you need to think about security perspective. You need to also think about compliance, right? If the data you are moving, is it compliance or not compliance, right? All of these things you need to also note it down properly. And then final thing you need to have is testing, right? And one more thing, after testing you will also have the rollback strategy. So let's talk about testing and rollback strategy. So what is testing? So testing means after you migrate your data from one system to another system, UAT team will come, user acceptance testing. The team will sit and they are gonna run the query, run the processes, run the maybe script, and they are gonna test it whether they like whatever their requirement is, based upon that requirement what the outcome is coming or not. If the data has migrated properly, they will get the required output. But if the data is not mapped or not migrated properly, they are gonna face error, and they're gonna say, hey, we are facing this kind of issue, data is not migrated properly, please fix it. And one final thing you need to have is basically rollback strategy. Let's suppose if while migrating the data something bad will happen, so you should always have the rollback strategy. And what that strategy will be, you need to write it properly. For example, if something attack will happen, then you generally want to roll back the entire data to that system. You don't have to migrate it. So rollback strategy needs to be defined in this particular document, right? That what kind of rollback strategy you will have. Either you will roll back the whole data, or you will roll back the partial data. What kind of that strategy is, these things you need to document very properly. And then you can say, yes, this is how the data migration projects are being executed, and this is the requirements for them. I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 18 and here is your 18th question. Question goes like this: describe your approach to writing requirements for a mobile application versus web application. Okay, so basically interviewer is trying to understand, when you are gonna get the requirement for web application or a mobile application, they want to understand your understanding with respect to web application and phone application. Or have you ever worked on this kind of scenarios where you need to get the requirement for the phone and web, or phone or web both, right? So let's tackle this situation, how you can answer this. So you can say, in order to get the requirements for mobile as well as a web, my overall approach would be like, I'm gonna start with the business goals. Okay, so you should always start with the business goals first, and then you are gonna consider the user personas as well, right? When I say user personas, the spelling got wrong, let me write it: user personas and the use cases. Okay, so user persona means what kind of users are gonna use this particular application. Are there maybe let's suppose the intended audience are general audience, or they are gamers, or they are developers. So what kind of personas are them? So I'm gonna consider them, the business goal and the use case of it, right? Okay, so that is my first step. And then I'm gonna define the functional and non-functional requirement. So non-functional and functional requirement. I'm gonna take the requirement for this functional and non-functional. Then I'm gonna write clear user stories. Okay, clear user stories. We have talked about this, but let me explain you. So user stories are basically if you're designing one page, so from where user will start, from where user is gonna click, the entire process of each and every feature, we call it as a user stories. So I'm gonna define the clear user stories, right, with the acceptance criteria, for sure, with the acceptance criteria. Okay, criteria. Apart from that, I'm also gonna use wireframe or prototype for early validation, right? Wireframe, okay, or prototype for early validation. And then I'm gonna consider security, performance and scalability. Security, performance and scalability of my system. So this is what I'm gonna write in my requirement document. And then for each and every section, I'm gonna go into the depth. I'm gonna write each and every section, line by line, item by item, requirement by requirement. But these are my overall, you can say, framework for getting the requirement or writing the requirement for mobile or web application. Now coming to the specific, if it is a web or if it is a mobile, there is gonna be little bit changes. Now let's talk about, if it is a web, then what kind of thing I'm gonna talk about. Or if it is a mobile app, let's start with the web one. So if it is a web application, so in that case, what I'm gonna do? So I'm gonna check the browser compatibility, right? Compatibility. So if requirement is that it should be, your web application should be uh, browser compatible with respect to Chrome, with respect to Safari, with respect to Edge. So I'm gonna check all of this condition, right? So that is my first thing. I'm gonna write it in my PRD document. Second thing, I'm gonna handle the responsive design, right? Responsive design. So whether it is able to respond to each and every kind of desktop or laptop or mobile or anywhere, right? So be it any size of the screen, but for each and every screen basically, the UI design should be very responsive. So that's what also I'm gonna write it into my requirement document. Apart from that, I'm gonna also check the performance and load handling. Performance and load handling, right? So how I can check the performance and load handling? So basically, I'm gonna sit with once the application is built, I'm gonna sit with multiple audience and I'm gonna do the load testing, right? So when I say load testing, multiple user will come together and then they will gonna test whether it is able to sustain all of those users or not, and if there is any compromise on the performance if multiple users are coming to the together, right? So I'm gonna check that, and this is I'm also gonna write it into my requirement document. Okay, final two things also I'm gonna do. I'm gonna check for the SEO and accessibility. So whether it is SEO friendly web application or not, right? Can I do search engine optimization? Can I do search engine optimization on top of that or not? And whether it is accessible, easily accessible on the world wide web internet or not, right? So it when I search this website, it is coming accessible to each and everyone or not. And one last thing I'm gonna do is basically I'm gonna integration and security. I'm gonna look into that perspective, right? Integration and security perspective. So basically over here I'm going to check the APIs, authentication, session management, all of these things are happened properly or not, and whether my website is secure or not, whether it has HTTPS or HTTP. So those kind of things I'm going to check it over here, okay, inside the web application. And when it comes to mobile application, so let me write it over here, mobile application. So here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna check couple of other parameters. For example, if it is compatible with iOS, Android, both of them or not, okay, iOS and Android. So for both of the platform, if it is compatible or not, if the requirement is like that. If requirement is only for Android, then I'm gonna check with the Android. If it is only for iOS, then for sure I'm only gonna check with the iOS. But in general, whenever we build application, we want that it should be compatible for both of the platforms, right? And then whatever is coming under that in this section, I'm gonna write down deeper requirements, right? And then I'm also going to talk about user experience and interaction, right? User experience and interaction. Since it's a application or phone application, then over here the user experience very much important. So we should be able to give the very good UI UX design, and user are interacting or not, those things also needs to be written. So this is another requirement. I'm gonna write it into my PRD document about user experience and interaction. I'm also gonna talk about performance and network constraint. Okay, network constraints. So most of the phone application should be faster. Actually web application should be also faster, but here the performance is really gonna matter because some devices have low RAM, some devices have high RAM. So on a low RAM devices, how it is gonna perform. And then another thing is network constraint. So let's suppose if network is low in my phone, in that case whether my application is able to sustain that low network or not, if the internet is required. So how it's gonna load the images, how it's gonna load the other libraries which is available. So that is another thing I'm gonna write down in my requirement document. Apart from that, I'm also gonna talk about the hardware integration, right? Hardware integration. Now what is that hardware integration? So basically, whatever, if my application is required GPS, camera, notification, biometrics, whether all of these things I'm able to do it properly or not, right? So that comes under the hardware integration. And then finally, app store guidelines. So whether my application is it's not violating any guidelines to release on the app store, or maybe play store, wherever I'm gonna release it. So that is guidelines constraint. I'm gonna check it, right? I'm gonna write it into my requirement document. And then final thing I'm gonna do is basically I'm gonna check if my network is lower. Okay, so actually network is come over here, but here I'm talking about the not the uh, phone network, but I'm talking about the internet. Okay, so here it was all related to phone network, but here it is internet. So if internet is slow, then in that case how my application is behaving. And then one more thing is battery part. If it is battery related, if the battery is low, in that case my app is able to consume how much battery. Is it consuming very high battery, or is it consuming low battery? Are there any ways using which I can reduce the battery consumption of the phone? So all of these things I'm gonna check if I'm building the mobile application, and I'm gonna write it into my PRD document. Okay, I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 19 and here is your 19th question. What is business process mapping? What notations and tools do you use to process the or basically map the business processes? So whenever interviewer asks this question, they basically wanted to check, do you really understand the meaning of mapping the business process or not? So let's understand this and try to answer this particular question. So first of all, we have to understand what is business process mapping. So let me give you one example. Let's suppose you are working in company X, okay, and you have created one particular solution. Okay, for example, let's suppose you have created any agentic AI web application which can basically automate your entire LinkedIn automation. Okay, let's suppose this is the project which you have worked, which can automate the LinkedIn. Okay, so this is the solution, proprietary solution your company had built. Now let's suppose some another people will come to you and they also want to build this kind of solution. Let's suppose company Y will come and they want to also build this kind of solution from the scratch. Okay, let's suppose they want this. So what they can do, either they can purchase this entire thing from you, or let's suppose if you're a service based company, you can build the same kind of thing to them as well. Okay, so both the options are available. Now if company Y will say no, we want to build this entire thing from the scratch with the help of your team, so in that case you just tell me what are the steps and then how you are gonna map this business process according to our environment. So let's suppose as a company X, you are using maybe some different cloud platform, maybe some different processes, maybe some different databases, some different tech stack. So in order to build this entire system to their tech stack, to their IT thing, IT compliance thing, you need to understand their tech stack, right? You need to understand their databases, you need to understand their cloud platform. Okay, cloud platform, and basically their infrastructure, basically infrastructure. And then you are gonna map from your tech stack, from your DB, from your cloud to your infra to their infrastructure, and that is what we call it as a business mapping. Okay, we are gonna follow one process with the help of which we are gonna map the businesses, and it includes some business logic as well, right? And that is what we call it as a business process mapping, right? It basically it's a visual representation of how businesses processes work step by step, right? So it's basically gonna give them idea that okay, in our basically infrastructure, this is how this entire processes look like, and when we are gonna build it and deploy it onto your infrastructure, this is how it's gonna look like. Okay, so that is called as business mapping, okay, or process mapping actually. Okay, it also shows the activity, decision, roles, input and output, as I talked about, right? on our platform how it is gonna look like, right? The roles, input, output, each and everything, and on their platform how it's gonna look like, we are gonna consider it, those things as well. It helps identify inefficiency, bottlenecks, and improve opportunity. Now let's suppose if in our infrastructure, if this automation of the LinkedIn project is having some bottlenecks on their infrastructure, and on our platform there is no bottlenecks, but when we are gonna build on their platform, we will find some kind of bottlenecks. So how we can improve that bottlenecks, how we can improve some of the other things, maybe security wise, they are facing some issues, so how we can improve those things, it's gonna give the idea of that as well. Okay. It also used for process analysis, optimization, and requirement gathering. Okay, so this is the whole idea behind the business process mapping. Now what notation and tools do we use? So you can say like, the tools which are used for this is basically, BPMN is one of the tool. BPMN, this is not a tool actually, it's a framework. We call it as a business process model, business process model and notation. Okay. Under this we use some standard notation for detailed workflow and enterprise processes. Okay. So it uses some standard notations. Okay. Then we use some kind of flowcharts, right, to show the current tech stack or the current architecture, how it looks like, and when we are gonna map it, then at your end how it's gonna look like. So we use flowcharts, and in the flowchart you can simply build a simple visualization diagram or simple flowcharts, right? Then we can use the UML activity diagrams. What are this UML activity? So UML activity diagrams are used when processes interact closely with software systems, right? So if they are gonna talk with software system, or if we are building some software systems, in that case we can build the UML activity diagrams. Okay. So this we can do, and then also we can use some SIPOC frameworks. SIPOC frameworks. What are these frameworks? So it's a high level view of suppliers, right? High level view of suppliers. So maybe you are gonna use maybe let's suppose a Gen AI model from the maybe vendor, maybe Olama, or maybe the vendor is basically Grok, or maybe the vendor is OpenAI. So all the suppliers, then whatever your input is, whatever your output is, right? Input, output, all of this thing we talked about into the SIPOC framework, right? And here also your customer also will come into the picture, customers, cost, all of these things, right? So these are some of the frameworks with the help of which we build this kind of process mapping and then show them. In terms of tools, there are multiple tools available for this. For example, you have for building the charts or flowchart, you have lucid chart, you can use that, or you can also use draw.io. And now there are multiple, you can say, agentic AI tools are available. You have eraser.io is also available, which can easily build this kind of flowcharts for you. Then we have for explanation and all of these things, we have Miro board. Right now I'm using this Miro or Miro board. You can use this same Miro board for collaboration and work, right? So you can use this. Then we can have maybe Figma. Okay, another is Figma. Let's suppose if you want to create any design, UI design, so all of this design can be sorted out inside the Figma. And let's suppose if you want to basically, let's suppose want to track each and every requirement, then you can use a tool like maybe Notion or Jira board. So all of these things you can do it, right? So these are the tools available for it. I hope you understand what is the meaning of business process mapping and you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hi everyone, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 20 and this is a 20th question, which is a follow-up question based on the previous video. Okay, so the question goes like this: explain the difference between as is and to be process mapping. So remember, in the last video we have talked about process mapping, and in this question we are talking about, so this is, you can consider a follow-up question, that you need to explain the difference between as is and to be process mapping, and what is BPMN, business process model and notation, describe its key symbols. Okay, so as you have already understand the meaning of business process mapping, we are directly jump into it, and I'm going to explain you the difference between as is and to be process mapping. Okay, so let's talk about as is first. So what is as is? Let me give you one example of e-commerce. So as is business process is basically going to talk about, you know, the current state, of the business. Okay, current state of the business process basically. Okay, so for example, you know, the current state can be, let me write it for the e-commerce example, that, you know, a customer places order value, this is the first step, and I'm just talking about the high level steps. Okay, high level business processes. Then order exported manually to Excel. This is the second step, what right now we are doing, okay, as a platform. Then in a third step, operation team manually verified the payment. Okay, so operation team manually verify the payment. Okay, this is the third step. Then we have fourth step, where we check inventory manually in the separate system. So we have a separate system to check the, you know, basically inventory, okay, manually. So this is our next step. So if I check the manually if inventory is there or not, accordingly I'm going to take a decision to increase or decrease the inventory, right? And then we are going to have these shipping details entered manually. So we are going to shipping the details manually, we are going to fill those. Okay, and then finally we, you know, have delays and frequent data entry errors. So this is the problem we are going to find, delays and data entry problems. Because it's a manual, it might, you know, happen that people are gonna put, you know, wrong data into that, because humans are being human, they can do that. Okay, so this is not replace, actually this is delays. All right, so this is my as is current state of the process. Now what is the problem with respect to this particular, you know, process? So the problem is basically, you know, it's a slow, it is not error prone, right? It has lot of errors. Okay, so it's not a error prone system we have built. It has lot of error, human can make the mistake, and it take a lot of time, and lot of manual efforts is also there. So these are the problems with respect to this system. Now we want to map this system to a to be process, right? So let me go, and I'm going to use to be process. Okay, so in the to be process, we are going to map our, you know, this as is process to be process, and this is basically going to show you the future state, right? The future state of the business. So what we are going to do over here, so the steps can be like this. Customer places order. Okay, so customer is gonna place the order via website. Okay, this is the first step. Second step, payment auto validated through payment gateway API. So we can integrate payment API gateway, through which the validation of the payment can be happened automatically, no need of manual process over there. And then we can have, you know, the inventory auto checked in real time. Okay, so in real time inventory auto check system, right? And then we can have, you know, system auto generate shipping label, system auto generate shipping labels instead of, you know, manually creating them. And then we can have customer receive automated order updates, right? So order updates can be pushed through the email notification or WhatsApp notification directly to the customer. And then finally we can have, you know, customer receive dashboard track order status and KPI. So a dashboard where we can keep track of KPIs, or maybe order status, each and everything basically, right? So we here what we are improving, we are making the system faster, right? We are making the system faster, error free, and it's reliable, scalable, right? Scalable. It requires less cost as well, because now we don't have to hire much human resources, gonna be less. It's a less cost, it's gonna take the less cost as well, and then it has the better customer experience and the improved accuracy, right? And it reduces the manual work, so we are moving toward the automation. So these are the benefits of this particular process, right? So this is the difference between as is and to be process. I have taken one example of the e-commerce, with the help of which I have explained you that, let's suppose this is as is process, okay, and then to be process is basically what company want in future. This is how we are gonna map our current process to the new process, right? So we are able to achieve the same thing, but in a more reliable, error free way, faster way, scalable way, less cost way, and automated way, right? But the process, basically process has changed, outcome is same, okay? And then next part of the question is basically, what is BPMN, business process model and notation, describe its key symbol, right? So BPN is, as we have talked in the last session as well, that it's a basically a standard graphical notation, right? Standard graphical notation. So with the help of this BPMN, we used to model and visualize business processes, with the help of which we can visualize the business processes. So here we use standard notations like circle, square, diamond, those kind of thing. For example, if every business process start with something, let's take the same example, okay? Customer places the order via website. So this, how I'm gonna show this. So first of all, I'm gonna start this business process with circle. So I'm gonna take this circle, I'm gonna draw a circle over here, and I will say start of the process, okay? And let me zoom it out. Then I'm gonna take the over here I'm gonna take the different shape. So the shape is basically going to be this thing. So here one process is happening, and what kind of process it is? So customer places the order via website. So I can say customer order. So this is my one process. Then what is my second step? Second step is integrate payment API gateway, or maybe over here I can come order exported manually to Excel. So this is another process, right? So I can go over here, and then this is another process. Similarly, I can create multiple processes, and if some decision is happening, so at that time I need to use this diamond, okay? So this diamond notation I need to use if there is a decision happening, right? So it's a simply like flow chart for the coding part, okay? The way how we create the flow charts for our logic of the code, it's a same kind of chart, okay? But in the business scenario, we call it as a BPMN, okay? Business process model and notation, BPMN, right? And then finally, like after each and everything, you will end the process with this same circle, right? So this is what BPMN. And why we use it? Because we want to map the business process, or we need to understand the business process. In that this BPMN is helpful or useful. I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 21, and here is your 21st question. Question is, what is root cause analysis, and explain the different RCA techniques. Okay, so let's try to understand the root cause analysis or RCA technique, why it is used, and the different kind of RCA techniques we have. Okay, so RCA is basically a systematic approach to identifying and underlying identify the underlying problem statement. So it's a systematic method. Let me just zoom it out a little bit. Okay, so it's a systematic method using which we can identify the underlying cause of a problem. Underlying cause of the problem. All right, now what kind of problem it can be? Okay, so it can be any business problem which we want to find it out the root problem, why that this particular problem happened. So in order to reach to the root of that, we can use a technique called as RCA technique. So in this RCA technique, we do commonly used a process improvement, quality management, and incident analysis. So these are the areas where we use this RCA technique. Process improvement, quality management, and incident analysis. Now common RCA techniques, one of the technique is we use 5 why technique. Okay, so this is one of the technique. In this technique, what we do, let me write, this is a first technique. So in this technique, what we do, we actually ask 5 times repetitive why questions. For example, we ask let's say, if I give you example, system, due to some reason, system got crashed. Okay, our system got crashed. So we ask on top of this 5 back-to-back why questions in order to reach to the a root of that problem. So the first why we may ask that why system got crashed, and maybe we got the answer like because server was overloaded. Okay, server was overloaded. Then once again we ask the same question. Okay, why server was overloaded then? So again maybe we got the answer because no load balancing was there. This I'm giving one technical example. Okay, so you need to little bit understand this technicalities as well, server and server overloading. Okay, so then once again we're gonna ask one why question. Okay, why then server was not balanced properly? So once again maybe we will get the answer because the configuration was not proper. So configuration was not proper, that's why server was not loaded, it was not balancing actually. Okay, then we will once again ask, okay, why the configuration was not proper? So maybe at the time of making this configuration, someone has done the mistake, and then maybe if it is a people fault or a process fault, we will reach to that particular person, and then we will be able to reach to the root of the problem, right? If let's suppose that was not the fault of the people, if it was the fault of system, then maybe we will be able to reach of the root cause of the system. Maybe some services was down, or maybe something had happened due to which system got crashed. So basically it's a technique using which we will be able to reach to the root of the problem by asking 5 times why. In general this why can be less than 5 times or more than 5 times as well, but in general we will be this is the average number, 5 times why. So in this number times we will be able to reach to the particular root cause of the problem. So this is one way. Another way, we have this fishbone diagram, we call it as a second technique. We have fishbone diagram. Okay, fishbone diagram. So in the fishbone diagram, what we try to do, actually we try to create a diagram which looks like a fish and it's the entire body. So we call it as a fishbone. Okay, or sometimes we also call it as a Ishikawa diagram. Okay, so where we will try to visualize the entire problem statement as a cause and effect. Okay, and then we will be able to visualize that whether it's a people fault or a process fault or a technology fault or an environment fault, all of these things. Okay, so this is another technique. Okay, we call it as a fishbone or Ishikawa diagram. With the help of that, we will be able to again reach to the same uh, root cause problem, where we will try to find the cause and their effects. Then we have third technique. Third technique is, we call it as a uh, Pareto analysis. Okay, Pareto analysis. Now what we do into the Pareto analysis, and it is also known as 80-20 rule. Okay, 80-20 rule. So in the Pareto analysis, we are trying to identify the fewer use cases responsible for most of the problem. So there is always 80-20 rule, okay, which generally says that for majority of the things, only 20% you can say materials, or 20% stuff is important, or you can say 20% stuff is related. So in our case, let's suppose if system got crashed, or some, if you are want to find it out, some problem statement, and it's basically root cause. So we are basically able to identify the fewer cases which is responsible for most of the problems. Okay, so only 20% of that particular, you can say, causes which is responsible for remaining 80% of the problems. We try to focus on a high impact area first, so that we do under the Pareto analysis. Then we have another technique, fourth technique, we call it as a fault tree analysis. Okay, fault tree analysis. So again, in the fault tree analysis, what we do, we actually try to create logical diagrams showcasing cause and effect relationship. Okay, so it's similar to fishbone, but over there your diagram look like a fish kind of structure, but here it's a tree kind of structure, right? We write cause, its effect, another cause, its effect, what was the root of that. So it's basically a tree kind of diagram, tree kind of analysis. Okay, so that is one thing. We can use this logical AND gate, OR gate, these kind of things. Okay, AND gate, OR gate, logical gates, in order to create this kind of tree analysis. Okay, then we have fifth technique, we call it as a process mapping. Okay, process mapping. So in the process mapping, actually I have already taught you this as well, but in the process mapping, what we do, in the process mapping, we try to basically find it out is, as, and to be process, is, as, and to be processes. Okay, processes. So in the is, as, we are able to identify, okay, this is how right now current process is going on, and due to which we got some kind of defect. Okay, and that once we identify the defect, the root cause of the defect, then we map it to the to be process, that this should be mapped to this to be process, so that we can enhance it further. So these are the few techniques with the help of which we will be able to perform the root cause analysis of any particular problem statement which we are facing in business, or in the any business analytics world. I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 22, and here is your 22nd question. The question goes like this: what is fishbone or Ishikawa diagram? How do you create and use one? So you can consider this question as a you can say follow-up question. So remember, in the last video, 21 questions, I asked you what is root cause analysis, and in the root cause analysis we have talked about that fishbone or Ishikawa diagram is basically one of the technique using which we will be able to reach to the depth of the problem. Okay, so it's a same follow-up questions your interviewer may ask you. So in that way we are tackling this question. Okay, so let's understand. I have already kept this diagram, but obviously in the interview you will not be able to have this diagram, but you can create always one diagram once you understand this entire concept. So let's understand what is Ishikawa or fishbone diagram. So you can say it's a it's a process of creating a diagram, Ishikawa diagram, with the help of which you will be able to do the RCA, which is root cause analysis. And in the Ishikawa diagram, what we do, in the Ishikawa diagram, we try to visualize cause and effect of the analysis. Okay, cause and effect. So basically we use to identify possible root cause of the problem. Okay, also called as cause and effect diagram, which you can see. So in the right hand side of the fish, as you can see, we try to write the problem, and so basically this is our effect, right, the problem. And then what causes this effect or particular problem, that we try to draw with the help of its basically bones. Okay, that's why it is called as fish bone. So these are the bones of the fish. Okay, so on each and every bone we try to write different causes which can cause this particular problem or effect, right? So, and this basically helps structured brainstorming during our root cause analysis. So as you can see at the head side we have written the problem. So problem can be anything, right, that why server got failed, or might be why we are not able to improve our maybe revenue. All of this thing can come under the problem or effect. Then in the main body part we try to write the main things like what are the different causes, and the main category of the causes are basically people, machine, methods, materials, measurement, environment. Sometimes it can be process. I have written one more over here, you see process. So it's the same diagram but I have taken the different images. So it can be process as well, right, machines as well, environment. So whatever you think that main categories, you need to first divide all of your things into a possible categories which can cause this particular effect or problem. Okay, and once we have this, so we will be able to now start doing the analysis. Let's suppose if bone is smaller. Okay, so if bone is smaller, that means specific contributing factors under each category. Okay, so in order to create this kind of diagram, let me give you one example. Okay, so one example can be, let's say delayed order deliveries. Let's take this example. I will write it over here. Delayed order deliveries. Okay, let's say we are facing this delayed order deliveries in our particular app. We have one app and we are facing this delayed order deliveries okay, in our app. So how we can create this kind of fishbone diagram for this particular problem statement. Okay, so first we will identify main cause categories. So we will create this diagram in this way. We will have our fish face like this, and then its entire maybe body. Okay, so body will go like this, right? Okay, I'm not able to draw it perfectly, but it is fine, you will be able to understand. So here we will gonna write the problem statement. So this problem statement will be written over here, and now here we will be keep writing, okay, what are the different causes which is delaying the order deliveries. So we will be write people. Is it a people that the delivery boy is not able to reach to the perfect time even though in the app there is no problem? Or is there a technical problem, right? Technical or a process, right? That delivery boy is not able to understand the process, or it's a technical problem that in the it is happening properly, but due to technical issue it is not showing in the app properly. So all of these things, possible things, we are gonna write it, okay, over here. And then we will start our brainstorming that, okay, we will maybe ask people, go to the delivery boys, ask them what is happening, are they able to reach or not. So we will try to debug each and everything, and finally we will be able to reach to the root cause why this is happening. So this is how basically we create the Ishikawa diagram, fishbone diagram, and then we do our entire root cause analysis in a structured way. Okay, I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 23 and here is your 23rd question. It says, explain SWOT analysis. When would you use it in a BA context? Okay, so let's understand what is SWOT analysis. So SWOT stands for basically strength, weakness, opportunity and threats, right? Now why it is useful in terms of BA as well? So it basically helps BA in able to align the entire solution to the business, you can say, strengths, right? So basically it aligns it aligns the solution to the strength of the business. Okay, and what is the other useful of it? So it basically with the help of this SWOT analysis we will be able to identify the risk at early stage. right? If we do it properly, we will be able to identify the risk of our business, what can be the potential risk to our business on an early stage. Okay, and it also highlights external factors influencing the requirement, and it supports data driven recommendation, right? So we will be able to not only identify the risk, we will be also able to identify the opportunities in the market, right? So now let's go into the SWOT analysis. So SWOT, as you understand, it stands for um, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So let's talk about what is strength. So strength is basically, your organization internal positive things. So what, how your basically organization is, what is your its competitive advantage. It can be one of the strength, right? Competitive advantage, correct. Let me write it over here. Competitive advantage. And then maybe, what is the a strong brand, or maybe, skill team. So this can come under the internal positive part of it, strength. Then we have something called as weakness. So weakness is basically negative of your organization, right? So what can come under the weaknesses? So maybe, process is insufficient, or system is outdated, or limited resources available. So that is example of the negatives of your organization. And every organization should always do this SWOT analysis, with respect to, very very fair. Okay, they should not lie to, themselves, because it if they are gonna lie, it's basically, directly gonna impact their businesses. So every business should do the SWOT analysis, and they should not be lying. That is the important thing. Okay, then we have opportunities. So opportunities, once again, it's an external factor. Opportunities is a external factor. So in the opportunities, basically, we try to understand that what are the market trends, new technology, regulatory benefits. So what is available in the market which can be used as an opportunity for our businesses, how we can adopt the new things, new technology, or maybe new AI. Maybe, now we are talking about the, you can say, AI, and then agents. So how we can, leverage the agents in our workflow. So those are the opportunities to your businesses. Then we have threats. Okay, threats. So threats, again, it's a external factor, external, and it's a negative one. So what kind of threat is available to for your company, right? See, we always talk about opportunities, but we, forgot about threats. Because let's suppose, your company is doing a very repetitive task. Now there are AI companies which is small, but they can, obsolete your entire industry. So we should always look for threats. What kind of example over here I can give you? So we should always look for our competitors, compliance risk, economic changes, right? All of these things comes under the threats. So if your company is dealing with, let's suppose, Excel, or maybe only doing some repetitive task, then, there might be some company who is doing all of this automation with respect to AI. So that will become threat to your particular organization. So you should always see how we can minimize the threat, how we can increase the opportunity, how we can lower down our basically weaknesses, and how we can improve our strength. So that comes under the SWOT analysis. Okay, so I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 24, and here is your 24th question. How do you measure process efficiency, and what KPIs would you use to track it? Okay, so in order to answer this question, first of all, you need to understand what is process efficiency, right? So process efficiency is basically, method using which we will evaluate the efficiency of our process. So efficiency meaning we need to understand how efficient our process is, or how good our process is, right? Are we able to deliver our product or service at a good amount of time, or is it lagging? So basically it's kind of, you can say formula goes like this: the time invested, or the resource invested, not, I will not only say time, resource invested divided by the outcome, right? Outcome. Okay, so how much resource you are investing and how much outcome you are getting, that is called as efficiency. if we take the ratio, or if we compare it, that is comes under the efficiency part, right? So in order to measure it, right, we should always do the things like this. We should define the process objective very clearly. Process objective clearly, that is the first thing we should do, right? If the objective is not clear of the entire process, let's suppose the objective is if we build this process should be able to deliver the project into 1 month. Let's suppose this is the clearly written demand. Okay, so it should be written clearly, conveyed clearly. And now by following that process, if we are not able to deliver the project into 1 month, if it is taking 1.5 months or 2 months, then our process is not efficient, right? So that is one example. You should always first define the objective of that process very clearly. Second thing, we should always establish a baseline matrix, right? The current performance before improvement. Current, you can say, performance before improvement. Before improvement, you should always define it properly, right? For example, your current performance is X, and after the improvement it has become X by 2. Let's suppose earlier it was taking X time, now it is taking X by 2 time. That means your process has improved by 50%. But instead of now taking X, after you establish some process, now it is taking, let's suppose, X.1 time or 1.x time. In that case, it has increased by some amount, rather than decreasing it. So we should always have the current performance before the improvement. So that matrix should be defined properly. Then we should also identify the bottlenecks and waste. Use process mapping and data analysis in order to do that, right? We should always identify the bottlenecks, and we should always look for as is and to be process mapping tools, right? We have talked about it. So we should also look for this as is and to be. What is the current process and what it needs to be improved, right? Now, what are the different KPIs in order to track this? So we have first time-based KPIs. Time-based KPIs, okay, in order to measure our process efficiency, in which we can go for the cycle time, right? Then maybe turnaround time, processing time, right? All of these things. Processing time is the KPI, right? You have cycle time, correct? Then you can have maybe waiting time or wait time. Okay, so these are time based KPIs. Then we have another set of KPIs, we call it as a cost based KPIs. Okay, cost based KPIs. So here what we have, we can have maybe cost per transaction. This is one of the KPI, cost per transaction, right? Then we can have operational cost reduction. Operational cost reduction, this is another KPI, right? We can also have maybe a resource utilization rate, right? Resource utilization rate. This is all cost based KPIs, right? And this directly involve money. So we should always have this kind of KPIs whenever we are talking about process efficiencies. We can have third set of KPIs, which is productivity KPIs. Productivity KPIs. So here we can talk about maybe let's suppose throughput. What is throughput, by the way? So throughput is basically unit process per time, right? For example, let's say earlier 5 team members was taking, let's suppose, 5 days to create the entire Power BI dashboard, and now we have improved the process. Now those 5 people are only taking 2 days in order to create that particular Power BI. So the throughput has increased, right? Throughput of the people, spelling is wrong, let me write it proper. Throughput. So throughput of the people has increased. So one unit is now able to do the more tasks. So that comes under the throughput. Then you can have output per employee. Output per employee. So per employee, how much productivity it is able to show. Those kind of things we have. And then we can have automation rate. Automation rate. How fast and how well people are now able to automate it. So that comes under the productivity KPI. Then we can have, another set of KPIs. Let me write it over here. Fourth set of KPIs. Okay, that KPIs are comes under the maybe quality KPIs. Okay, quality KPIs. So in the quality KPIs, what we can measure, we can always measure the error rate. So whatever it is being produced, how much it is error free, how much it is erroneous, right? So we can always have the rate. If it is lower erroneous, that means error rate is lower, we are able to produce the good thing. So that comes under the quality KPI, right? Second kind of KPI we can have, rework percentage. Rework percentage. So obviously if we are able to produce less error prone things, then we need to rework less, and it's a good thing. So rework percentage and error rate should be as minimum as possible, right? Then you can have, maybe SLA compliance rate, right? SLA compliance rate. So what is this SLA compliance rate? So in every company we have something called as SLA. So SLA is basically a time given to one particular task in which it should be completed. So if we are not able to complete it on a very given SLA time, so obviously it is a poor performance, so we are downgrading our quality. So that all comes under the quality KPIs. Then we have fifth kind of KPIs, which is a final KPI also, and we can call it as a customer related KPIs, customer impact related KPIs. Okay, what are these KPIs? Let me write it over here. What are these KPIs? So we can have customer related KPIs like CSAT score. So this is one of the score using which we are able to find it out the customer satisfaction, how customer is satisfied with our services or products. Okay, customer satisfaction score, CSAT score. Okay, so this is one KPI we can always use at a customer side. After completing our project, we can always, so in order to create this particular score, we roll out some of the questionnaire to our customers, and they answer all of these questions, and based upon that we create this CSAT score. So there is a formula around it, you can always go and check out it. Okay, that formula. So we use CSAT score. Apart from that, we have something called as NPS score. NPS score stands for net promoter score. Now net promoter score is basically, you are not able to just understand how satisfied your customer is, but you are also trying to understand if your customer is becoming your promoter or not, right? So if someone is liking your product or services, are they referring another customer, are they becoming promoter of your services or product? So that comes under the NPS, right? So if NPS score is good, that means we are able to not only provide the solution which is helping our existing customer, but our existing customer is that much helpful, or you can say joyful with us, that he is also becoming our promoter. So he is promoting our services or product to another customers. So our existing customer is you can say they are happy with us, and they are now becoming promoter, and we can track those things with the help of NPS. And then we can also have one final one, we call it as a compliance score. So in order to compliance score basically tells you that how good your compliance is, are you breaching data or not? All of those things comes under the compliance. How well you are dealing with customer data, how you are organizing it, how you are managing your processes internally. All of these things comes under the compliance scores. So any business can use all of these KPIs in order to track their process efficiency basically, right? I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hi everyone, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 25 and here is your 25th question. Question goes in this way: what is the difference between process improvement and process re-engineering? So in the previous video we have understood the process efficiency. You can consider it as a follow-up question on top of that only. Okay, so let's understand the difference between process improvement and process re-engineering. So process improvement, let me write out the pointers as well. So first we will talk about process improvement. I'm gonna write it as PI. So in the PI, let me do it in this way. So in PI we focuses on incremental changes, not the drastic changes. Okay, because it's a process, you can say change process, it's not a process engineering. So therefore we always go for incremental changes, step by step changes, not the drastic changes. We look for enhance existing as is process, right? Whatever the as is process is there, we look for enhancing it, but we don't want to change it from the scratch. We look how we can enhance it. In the PI, what also we focus on, so we focus on, improve the efficiency, quality, or cost. Okay, we try to improve efficiency, cost, or quality. Okay, then we also maybe try to lower down the risk. Let me write it in a proper way. Lower down the risk. Okay, we try to basically you can say with risk, and then improve gradually. We try to improve gradually. Okay, so that is the things over here. We also try to improve continuous with Kaizen approach. Okay, so there is an approach called as Kaizen approach. So with the Kaizen approach, what it says, you need to focus maybe 1% or do daily small changes, not the entire structural change. So we took Kaizen approach over here, and Kaizen approach says do little changes, not the hard changes. So example can be automating a manual approval step. Example over here is automating a manual approval step. So that we focus on the PI, we call it as a process improvement. And then we have process re-engineering, right? So let me write it over here, process re-engineering, PR. So in the PR, what we focus, so in the PR we focus on a radical design. Okay, radical design. So basically we try to change each and everything, whatever is maybe change from the scratch. Let's do it, not go for incremental, but let's go for the drastic change. Okay, we also focus on rethink the entire process from the scratch. As I said, rethink the entire process from the scratch. Okay, so that is also we think in the PR. We aim to change the dramatic. So basically that is the difference. Okay, now if I give you the example. Okay, so let's take one example. Let's say we have a scenario where we want to improve, or basically there is a process called as loan process. Okay, loan process. So loan approval process in the bank, let's say. Okay, this is the scenario. Now the bank is facing some issue. It is facing long approval turnaround time, and let's say it's a 7 to 10 days of time in order to process one of the loan. So it's also it is a very highly manual process. Okay, let me write it in a proper bullet form, and it's a manual process. Okay, and customer are very dissatisfied. So these are the three problems currently bank is facing. So customer not happy. Okay, so how they will be happy? If this 7 to 10 days time will be reduced, or this manual process should be reduced, then the customer will be happy. So let's suppose this is the problem we have. Okay, now we are going to take the first PI approach and then PR approach. With the both approaches, I'm going to show you how this can be implemented. So let's see how what process improvement do in this particular scenario, right? So in the process improvement, we will have first to identify as is issues. Okay, so as is issues are all of this, like if you write it over here, so it's a manual, right? Okay, it's a manual one. Email based internal approach, right now it's a manual approach. We need to write maybe emails in order to maybe approve the loans. Okay, so those things are there. And manual eligibility calculation, people do it in the Excel. Okay, so banker will do all the calculation in the Excel, and then finally it says you can go for and take the loan. So that is the first step we do in the PI. Then we think, okay, how we can improve it. So we go for the basically improvement action or to be process. Okay, to be process, you can also say it as a improvement plan. Now here, as you can understand, we are talking about PI. So PI not gonna go for the entire structural change, but it's gonna take the Kaizen approach, and it's gonna take the little steps. So what could be the things over there? So maybe, introduce standardized verification checklist. Maybe we will have a verification checklist in order to reduce the timing, so that banker will sit and check all of the things from this checklist, and it will verify. Okay, this is one of the thing we can do. We can also define the SLA time. That hey, you need to do this in maybe 3 to 4 days only, don't take more than that. Okay, so we will have the clear definition of the SLA. Define the SLA, right? Also we can have maybe created automated eligibility calculator. So in the let's suppose Excel, we have automated the entire formula, right? So that calculation won't take much time, right? And as a result of doing all of these things, we got the result like we are able to reduce the timing, let's say from 7 to 10 days to maybe 4 to 6 days, right? So this is the result we will be able to achieve, right? Fewer errors will be there, obviously, and approval time has decreased. Okay, but this is fine. Now let's talk about the this thing, PR. So PR is process re-engineering. Okay, so in the process re-engineering, what will happen? We are gonna think from the first principle, and in that we will be going to implement the digital loan. We will gonna replace the entire system, and we will be implementing, right? Implement the digital loan process. Now obviously the first time, in order to create this, it's gonna take time, right? So till the time it is gonna be created, people will be using this particular PI method, in which whatever improvement we have done. Okay, so they are gonna use this because this is quick. We will be able to implement very quickly, right? But in order to create the entire digital loan processing engine or a system, it's gonna take time. So until we are gonna make this, people are gonna use this improved plan, and once this improvement will be done, they are gonna use this digital loan processing system. Now in this digital loan processing system, we will be having the real-time credit score API, right? Real-time credit score API. So no need to check manually, okay, that how much loan I should give, and all of this thing calculation is gone now. We can directly have the API fetch, and we will be able to see the how much loan the person is eligible. We can have automatic eligibility criteria checking, right? Eligibility criteria checking whether we can give the loan to this particular customer or not, right? We can have some machine learning models which can do that, right? And then finally we will have the workflow based approval system, and then finally customer self status tracking. All of these things can be automated. Now in a result of this, we will have so in the result we will have from maybe earlier it was taking 7 to 10 days, but now it will only take maybe 24 hours to 48 hours, which is generally 1 to 2 days. So we will be able to reduce the timing very drastically, and customer will be happy. So this kind of approach we took in PR, and in the PI we go only for slow thing. Now you may argue that why to use PI even if we can implement the PR. So answer is already available to you. In order to implement the PR thing, it's gonna take time, right? In order to create the digital solution and remove the entire thing from the scratch and introduce the new solution will take some time. So that's why PI is always important and useful, because till the time we are going to implement this entire solution, people can use this enhanced version of our existing solution, right? And earlier it was taking 7 to 10 days, but here also you see 3 to 4 days also it is taking. So somehow we are able to reduce it even further, right? In the PR, once the system will be available, then we can scrape this entire PI thing and we can people can always use this new digital system, right? I hope you understand what is the difference between process re-engineering and process improvement. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Thank you. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 26 and here is the question for the day. Question goes in this way: what is RACI matrix, RACI matrix, and how do you create one for a project? Okay, so in order to answer this question, you can start in this way. A RACI matrix, also called as responsibility assignment matrix. Okay, so it's a matrix which is basically meant for mapping the stakeholders. So let's suppose if you are working in a project and there is a confusion that who is going to work on which part, who is accountable. So in order to remove all of this confusion, we use called a matrix called as RACI matrix. Okay, so it's a responsibility assignment matrix. Let me write it over here: responsibility assignment matrix. Okay, so what is the full form of the RACI? So full form of the RACI is R stands for responsible. Okay, so the person who is gonna be responsible for that particular work or that particular task, we call it as a R. Then we have A. So A stands for accountable. Now what does that mean? So accountable means person ultimately gonna be answer for the outcome. So a person who is gonna be ultimately responsible or accountable for the answering the final question, right? We call it as a accountable person. Okay, then we have C. C stands for consulted. Okay, consulted. And what does that mean? So consulted means a subject matter expert. Okay, a subject matter expert for that particular project. So let's suppose if you're working in maybe AML project or domain where you are working, let's suppose maybe in the automobile sector. So one person from the automobile sector who is gonna know in and out of that particular sector, that person is gonna act as a subject matter expert or a consulted who is gonna provide input to maybe data scientists and other teams. So that comes under the consulted. Then we have I, and I stands for informed. Okay, informed. So informed means the stakeholders who are kept updated. Okay, the stakeholders or a person who are kept updated. So we need to keep updating these persons that hey, this is done, that is done, so that they can take a next step, or maybe they will be able to understand the whole scenario, what is going on, right? So the stakeholders basically are those who are kept informed. That comes under the I. So this is what RACI matrix. Now let's try to understand what are the different steps available in order to create RACI matrix, and then we will take one example. With the help of that, I will show you how you can create one particular RACI matrix. So let me write it over here, the major steps involved over here. And before that, why the RACI matrix is useful. So basically it prevents the confusion which happens that hey, I don't know what is to do with this task. Okay, or I don't even know this steps was existing. So this kind of conflicts you will see in the projects. So in order to remove all the conflicts, and each and every person is have some dedicated task assigned to them, responsibility, accountability, consulted or informed, those kind of tags will be available to them, and we will have to define those tags to them. And in after that there will no confusion that who needs to do what, right? So RACI helps in order to remove those confusions. It also helps remove duplicate efforts. If someone is gonna repeat the effort, so that is also not gonna be coming over here, because we will be assigning specific task and specific roles to each and every member of that particular project, right? Okay, now let's see the steps, high level steps involved in this. So the very first thing is we need to let me write the step number 1. We need to understand the project requirement. So we need to list down all the basically you can say project activities, all the project activities. This is the first task we will do. Okay, now within this project activities, it what are the activities? Maybe requirement gathering is one of the activity. Requirement gathering, so who is gonna do that? Then second, maybe business requirement document creation, BRD or PRD document, right? BRD slash PRD documentation document. So this is another steps. One more thing can be design approval. Okay, design approval, so who is going to approve the design, who is going to create the design. Then maybe development of the project. Okay, then let's suppose we have testing, so who is going to do the testing. Then we will have user acceptance testing, UAT, right? And then finally deployment, right? So these are the few you can say project activities which is involved in any IT project. It can be any different project as well, but let's suppose we are working on an IT project, and these are the all the project activities which is required. So this is one step. We need to identify all of these activities first. Then the second step is basically what we need to do. In the second step, we need to identify the key roles. Okay, identify the key roles or stakeholders. So roles, maybe for example, if I give you the example, so there is going to be one project manager, we call it as a PM. So one PM is required for this particular project to be executed. So this is one role we have identified. Similarly, there is going to be one BA, business analyst. Then we will have maybe developer who is gonna write the code and develop the application. Then we will have maybe QA tester. Then we will have maybe product owner. So product owner is basically main guy, a business guy who is gonna own this entire project, right? So we call it as a product owner. In some cases your project manager is itself product owner, but in some cases we differentiate them. Okay, it depends upon the company to company how big or how small your company is, so it's gonna differ that role. Okay, and then we will have, let's suppose, sponsor of that particular project, and then maybe operation team. Okay, operation team. Here operation team means sales team, DevOps team, all team can come under the operation team, right? And then finally, as a step 3, we need to now assign the R, A, C or I role to each of them individually. So now we will start creating one matrix, okay, to them. So let's take one example and then I will show you how we can do this. So let's take a problem statement, and the problem statement goes like this. Let's suppose we want to create a RASI matrix for a company who is implementing a new CRM software. Okay, so let's create the table. RASI matrix, we can create a table, right? So I'm gonna take this table, a template actually. Let me see how can I grab the table from here. I cut this, and yeah, you see I have the table. Let me click on this. Okay, all right, now let me change this things. So first of all, I'm gonna write the what are the different tasks we need to do it. Okay, so that comes under the task. Let me a little bit zoom this table for your view. Okay, I hope this is visible properly. And now we are creating the RASI matrix. All right, so the first thing, instead of title, I want to say it as a task. Let's save it. Okay, then we will have the different rules. Okay, so who is gonna do what? So let me first the project manager, then second we will have maybe BA. Okay, business analyst. Then let's add maybe dev team and QA team. So here I'm gonna say dev team, development team basically, and here maybe QA team. Save it. Okay, and this is not gonna be text actually, it's gonna be simple text, not date, simple text. Okay, save it. Similarly here also, or we can assign the person icon as well. So here in the Miro board or Miro board, we have multiple options. You see, you can assign one person, that this is gonna be person, right? So for each and everything, these are PMs, right? Instead of simple text, we can say it's gonna be person, right? Let me save this. And obviously in the real world scenario, it's gonna take some time, right? So edit the field, and this is again gonna be person, save it, right? QA. And then maybe you can have product owner and all the members. Okay, I'm not gonna show you for each and every one, but yes, you can have those things. Then we will, in the left hand side task, we are gonna write the task. So for example, the first task is project planning. Okay, so project planning. Now for the project planning, I will say, uh, generally project planning is done by project managers, right? So I will say PM is gonna do the project planning. So accountable person, I will assign A. Okay, let me write it over here, A. So A means what? Okay, so here I need to change it from person to, because if you select this person, so in the row you can only fill the person. Okay, but right now I have only like me, like I have logged in with my account only over here. If it is in a real business scenario, so over there you will be able to see all of the person, and then you can assign them. But right now I am only the person over here in the room, so that's why I need to change this. Okay, so let me change this from text only. Okay, save it, and then I will say, so accountable person is this PM. Okay, then what is BA? So let me give the BA as, okay, let's change the field from person to text only, then only we will be able to do that. So let's say for BA, I'm gonna see this. For project planning, BA is act as a C. Now what is C? As you remember, we have written C is for consulted, right? So BA is gonna act as a subject matter expert over here. Okay, then we have a dev team. Let me change the text, save. Now dev team, let's suppose for dev team, I'm gonna say it's a I person. I means the person who we need to inform about this project planning, so that's why this comes as a I, informed, for this particular task. Then we will have QA team. Let me also change this from text, save it. And let's suppose for QA team also, they are gonna act as a I. Okay, so we have given ACI. Now we haven't given R to anyone. R is the responsible person. So responsibility wise, this PM, it's a, you can say, we have given the accountable. So maybe PM are gonna divide this work to maybe their junior managers, who is gonna act as a responsible person. So basically they are gonna create. So maybe let me write one more edit field over here, and then I will say text, and maybe I can say I can say junior PM, or instead of junior PM, I will say maybe tech lead. Okay, so tech lead is the responsible person. Okay, it's not a date, I need to change the field to text, save it, and then I will assign R to this particular tech lead, right? So for project planning, we have created the RASI matrix. Then we will have another thing, requirement gathering. Okay, so let me write it over here, requirement gathering. Now for this requirement gathering, generally tech lead and PM, they gonna work together to create the requirement along with the BA. Okay, so let's assign who is the what. So I can say accountable person is going to be the PM, so let's assign A. And here this time BA is gonna be responsible, so BA will be doing it. Okay, dev person should be informed, QA person should be informed, and tech lead should be informed, right? So we have this, and C is for what? C is for consulted, right? So here for requirement gathering, maybe who is going to act as a C? So I think this BA can act as a consultant, because BA is knowing most of the things, and maybe we can add someone over here as well, who is gonna act as a stakeholder, who is knowing most of the things for the, you can say, IT domain. So we can add some person, right? In that case, BA will become your I person, R person, responsible for person, and then that person who is having the knowledge, that person will become the consulted person, C person, right? So this is how generally, you write each and every task over here. Okay, maybe one another task will be BRD document creation, right? BRD documentation. So in that case, your PM will become actionable, your PM will become accountable person, your BA will become, maybe responsible person in that case, and these teams are informed, right? Like this. And then for example, if coding will come, or basically development will come over here, so in that case, uh, dev team will become, the responsible person, tech lead will become the accountable person, and this will become informed, this will become informed, right? And this will become also informed. The, same person can also work for I/C. Okay, so this person can become informed as well as the consulted, because for one of the tasks, maybe BA is knowing in and out what kind of input is required in order to, achieve the full development. So it's not like only BA is gonna work as a I or C. They can act as a multiple role for the one particular task. And once you create this entire, you can say table, we call it as a RACI matrix, because in the matrix you will see only RACI. So that's why this will become the RACI matrix, right? I hope you are able to understand the meaning of RACI matrix, why it is useful, and how to create one. Okay, I hope you like this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 27, and here is the 27th questions for this day. What is lean methodology? How does it apply to process improvement? Okay, so you can say or answer this question in this way, that lean is a process improvement philosophy which focuses on maximizing customer value while minimizing the waste. Okay, so it's a methodology using which we generally, focus on you can say maximizing the customer value while minimizing the overall waste. Okay, overall waste, or you can say overall waste efforts basically. Okay, let me just zoom it out a little bit. Yeah, now this particular method actually originated from the Toyota Motor Corporation initially. Okay, Toyota Motor Corporation, and finally it like initially it basically started from Toyota Motor Corporation, and then finally it expanded to each and every sector, like IT sector, and then production sector, mobility sector, each and every sector actually it reached. So that was about the definition of the lean methodology. Now what it focuses on, okay, how it basically what are the different principles which is this lean methodology based upon. So we have 5 key principles on which this lean methodology is, you can say, based upon. So the very first you can say principle is define the value. Okay, define the value. Let me write it as in the bullet point format. So define the value, this is the first, you can say, principle. Now in define the value, what goes actually, so it's basically asks for the customer's perspective. Okay, whatever you are doing, right, you should always ask or include customer perspective in order to define the value, right? So what customer is thinking, what is the customer perspective. Okay, perspective. So that comes under the define value. Then we have map the value stream. What does that mean? So basically we are going to identify all steps in the entire process, all the important steps in the process, identify that. Okay, identify all the important process. Okay, then we have third pillar or third principle, create the flow. What does that mean? So remove bottlenecks and delays. Once identify all the important steps, you will be automatically also, like after doing some brainstorming, you will be able to understand the bottlenecks and the delays. So remove all of them. So remove the bottlenecks and delays. Okay, it should be delays from your entire project. Then we have fourth pillar, we call it as a establish pull. Establish pull, what does that mean? So basically produce only what is needed and not the waste thing. So produce what is needed and not the waste, because now we are able to identify the bottlenecks and delays. We can obviously produce whatever is needed and not the waste thing, right? And then we have final pillar, right? The fifth pillar, we call it as a pursue perfection. Pursue perfection. Perfection. Now in this, what we need to do, we need to think for a continuous development, and we need to target the perfection part, right? We should not say that okay, we are perfect now, but no, we should always look for continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement. So these are the five, you can say, let me improvement. These are the five pillars or principle on which this entire lean methodology is based on, right? Okay, now let's say what is waste in lean. Okay, in the lean methodology, let's understand what is waste so that we can answer this. How does it apply to process improvement? So in order to improve the process, we should be able to understand the waste part of the entire lean, right? Lean methodology. So in the lean methodology, waste is defined as the kind of or not needed thing into the entire ecosystem or into the entire process, and it identify 8 type of waste. Okay, 8 type of waste. What are those different 8 types? Let me list down. The first one is defects. Okay, so if anything errors during the work, or basically the things which we need to rework on. So error, or you can say errors requiring rework. So if we are gonna rework on something, that comes under the waste. Okay, we don't need that. Okay, requiring rework. So that is the first thing, we call it as a defect. Second one is overproduction. Overproduction, right? As name suggests, you are gonna doing more than what is needed, so we need to eliminate this also, and this is also called as waste. Then we have waiting, right? If someone is waiting too long, so it's an ideal time, we are not doing anything, that is also a waste, right? Then we have non-utilized talent. Non-utilized talent, if you have hired someone but you are not utilizing them, that is also called come under the waste part of it. Okay, talent. So basically lean methodology identify this also as a waste. Then we have transportation, unnecessary movement, right? Transportation, which comes under the unnecessary movement. So let's suppose if you only require to move from A to B, but you are taking a lot of time, taking a lot of efforts in order to transport from your maybe goods or service from A point to B point, then B point to C point. So that is you need to basically optimize your transportation. That also comes as a waste. Then you have inventory management, right? So inventory, this is also one of the waste. If you are not able to manage your inventory properly, if you are excess work in progress, so that is also called as waste. Then we have motion. So unnecessary, if you are moving, or if basically it's not about the people roaming around it, but it's unnecessary. Your business is focusing on that value or this value which is not required right now. So that also comes under the waste part of it. You should be laser and sharp focus on something. If you have not cracked that particular thing, then you should be only focusing on that part instead of focusing maybe horizontal expansion or a vertical expansion. That will come later, but right now you should be focusing on something. So unnecessary motion is also the waste. Then we have extra processing. Okay, extra processing. Now this extra processing meaning what? Extra processing can be for anything. For example, you are hiring more, or maybe you are taking more efforts, but your outcome is not that much. Or if your server bills are going high because of too much computers you have taken on the rent, you have the only capacity for 50, but you have, you are now going for the capacity of maybe 100, doubling your size, but you have not, fix your previous 50 capacity only. So that is called as extra processing. You are taking too much extra processing, but your outcome is not that much good. So that is also comes under the waste part of it, right? So this is 8 type of different waste lean identify, and it should lean try to eliminate all of this, right, in order to improve the processes, correct? Now also we have, talked about, as is to be processed. So all of those comes under the lean only. We have learned about bpmn, right? So those comes all the things over here. We have also talked about, 5 whys in order to reach to the, root of the problem. So that all comes under the lean only. Okay, so lean also tackle all of those things. Now there is a difference between, traditional and lean process of improvement. Okay, let me write it over here, or maybe we can go here. So let me create one more table. Okay, and let's give the from title to maybe, a traditional way of improving the process, and then we have lean way of, okay, lean way of, I can say lean. Let me remove this. Lean way of dealing with the problem. So in the traditional way, what we do actually, so we fix the problem, as they occur, fix the problem as they occur. So we focus on that. Okay, but in the lean methodology, we think, one step ahead. We try to prevent the waste properly. Okay, before they happen, actually we try to first identify all of this waste. Okay, which we have talked about, you see all this waste, and then we try to prevent them. Okay, on an early stage only, before they happen. So prevent the waste. So lean focuses on them. Then in the traditional way, it's a department focus. So if some problem is happening in that department, that department is going to be reliable for that, and they're going to focus. But here it's basically end to end process focused. If it is involving multiple departments, no worry, call all of them. Okay, call all of them immediately, and then, identify all of the waste, and then sort it out from end to end. Okay, so it's not department focus, it's basically end to end process fix, right? Process fix. Then in the traditional way, we go for the heavy documentation, right? We basically, try to write each and every pointers, heavy documentation. But here we don't focus on the heavy documentation, we focus on the streamlined workflows. Streamlined workflows, which actually solve your problem, right? Here you can say it's a reactive, right? You are gonna react whenever the problem is happen, but this is going to be a proactive approach, and it's a continuous improvement. Proactive, and we always look for continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement. It's not like if we have improved something, we are not going to look for the further improvement. No, we are going to look for continuous improvement. What else can be improved, so that we can achieve, the perfection. So there is no such word perfection, but we try to reach to that particular point, right? When we come to lean methodology. Okay, now there are, different tools people use in under the lean. Remember, we use 5 whys, we have used bpmn, we have used, kaizen technique, we have used this pareto analysis. So all of these things which we have talked, those all the techniques comes under the lean methodology only, right? So I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 28, and here is the question for the day. How do you handle resistance to process changes from employee? So this is a scenario based question where, interviewer is trying to understand your perspective, or, your steps which you will take if, you are going to process or introduce a new process into the system, or maybe, some new kind of things into your organization, and if the employees are going to resist them. So in that scenario, what you will do? Okay, so in order to understand or answer this question, you can start like this. So first of all, you should explain why the resistance comes from the employee. So generally, the resistance of the new processes or new workflow come due to fear. Okay, so fear of maybe getting their job out, they will be gone from the job. So this is one of the scenario using which the fear is basically this employees resist. Then we have several other factors like maybe fear of increasing the workload by introducing the new system, right? Fear of increasing the workload workload due to this as well, employees resist the new processes. Maybe they are comfortable with the older system, right? Comfortable with older system. So this is another reason, they generally avoid to introduce new system, and they are gonna resist it basically. Then maybe lack of basically understanding. They will say why this new system is required. They don't have any understanding of this, and that's why also they are gonna resist it. And there are multiple other several reasons as well. So these are but basic one. Okay, now once we identify these are the basic cause, then we should apply some kind of techniques in order to clear all of these things. So you can say first of all, we need to identify the type of resistance. Okay, so type of resistance, if we are going to identify it, so we can say is it a based upon emotion, right? So is it coming from the fear of getting getting their job out, or maybe increasing workload? So is it coming from the emotion, or is it logical? I mean, sometimes introducing new system is not a good thing always. So sometimes it can be logical. People can say, hey, if you're introducing this new system but it looks very complex, so I think older system is way better than this your new system. So sometimes it is logical, right? So in that case, we should acknowledge their whatever they are saying, right? So yeah. And then third thing is basically is it due to political reason? Okay, sometimes they do politics, internal politics, right? Loss of training and all of this thing, loss of control. Basically control is getting out from them, so loss of control. And then fourth, maybe is it a skill based issue? Skill based or a skill gap, right? I can say skill gap. So these are the type of resistance, right? Now once you identify the type of resistance, then you can start basically like filling this gaps. Okay, so one of the thing you can do is basically you can involve the employee in your particular new processes. So maybe you can say instead of, you can say, hey, this is the whole new system we are going to introduce, or new process we are going to introduce. You can say hey, we our older system is it is failing at this places. You can always compare that this particular existing system is having flaw over here or over there, and then you can say we are going to work on a new project, and let's build together. So this is very important, build together. Once they get sense, okay, they are going to build something together with you, then they will not get the fear of getting their job out, or maybe they will not say their control is going out, something like that. So in that case, they will be happy to work with you, right? So in this way, you first of all, you can tackle this. Apart from that, you should always communicate the why part very clearly. Why we need to introduce the new system, this should be very clear, right? Sometimes they will have no understanding why we are building this new processes. So in that case, clearly communicate why part, what are the benefits you are going to get. Okay, and you can also talk about the WIIFM. What is this WIIFM stands for? What's in it for me? Okay, what's in it for me? So this is a biggest question generally employees ask whenever you are going to introduce new processes, new system. They are going to ask, okay, since you are introducing this thing, what is in it for me, right? What is there for me in this particular new processes? So you should always talk their benefits, their contribution. So in that case, they will be gonna be comfortable with your talk, and then they will start working with you, right? So yeah. And then you can also think about if they are lagging skills. Okay, if they are lagging skills, so you should be taking some senior members, or maybe you need to organize the proper training, right, by the help of senior members and other peoples. Proper training is required in order to build or execute this new process, right? So proper training you need to give. Apart from that, you should also start with the very quick wins, okay? So don't directly jump and give them the whole bunch of new processes which you are gonna change, but rather start with small things, okay? Small things. And there, each and every employee, you can give the small particular task where they can show the quick wins, and that is how you will be eventually changing from older system to the whole bunch of newer system by looking quick wins, okay? Yeah, and apart from that, sometimes in between the work they will get some emotional resistance, or maybe something else. So in that case, you have to be very active in listening their things, okay? Active listening you need to do, and you need to listen their stuff, right? You need to do, don't directly jump into the argument part, rather do the active listening. Try to understand their pain point, right, what they're trying to say. And if you are able to understand, and then after that you take up maybe empathy, show some empathy that hey, this is not gonna in that way, but maybe your organization is looking for a new processes, because you will be able to work better, you will be able to do your task in a less time. So all of these things you need to explain, okay? Let me give you one quick example, okay, so that it will be solidified. So let's say example, let's say if I give you um, let me write it in the here. So let's say you can say, I understand the system is very complex, okay? System is very complex which we are introducing the new system, but let's go step by step, and let's build it together. Let's go step by step, let's build it together. So this kind of empathy words or sentences you can always use, okay? And then you can always take the help of maybe maybe let's suppose the example if I give you, let's say your company is introducing maybe new crm system, and people are very, you can say right now your employees are not very comfortable with this new crm system, and they are having fear that they will gonna lose their job, okay? So in that case you can say, okay, look, the system is very complex, let's build it together, I need your help as well. And then you can take few you can say senior executives from sales side, and then you can conduct the training, okay? Conduct the proper training. Let's, this entire system is already built, so now they basically want to learn how this is gonna work, and then you can in that training your senior executive is gonna compare the older system and newer system, and they are gonna talk about all of these pointers which we have talked about, WIFM, Y part, right, each and everything, correct? And based upon that you are gonna make them comfortable, and then finally they will be able to adapt the new system. So as a BA, it's our job that if the new system is introduced, if the new process is introduced, so it is not only introduced, we should be able to increase the users on that particular system, in order to completely remove the older system, because new system is introduced, so that because it has benefit, right, it has some uh, good amount of benefit with respect to your older system. So it is our responsibility to increase the users on this new system. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to do all of these things, right? I hope you understand the this particular question, and you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 29th, and here is the question for the day. What is swim lane diagram, and when would you use it? Okay, so this is a type of question where interviewer is trying to understand your different knowledge of frameworks, with the help of which you will be identify the bottlenecks, you will be identify the people, processes, and how to basically avoid the conflict, and how you can run the entire project in a smooth way. So that is the one of the technique we have, we call it as a swim lane diagram. So you can say, in this swim lane diagram, it's basically a process of creating a diagram in order to basically understand the process flow, okay? in order to understand the process flow. So let's suppose you are working in a particular project and there are multiple departments or multiple peoples are involved. Okay, multiple people or multiple you can say departments are involved. Now this swim lane diagram, basically it's a diagram, visual representation, with the help of which you will be able to separate their roles, you will be able to segregate their tasks, and you will be able to give in between roles and responsibilities. So what, how we can create one swim lane diagram, and what are the components of it? So basically in the swim lane diagram, if I give you you can say analogy, so you just consider in the Olympics you have this kind of swimming pool, right? And in this swimming pool we have lanes, right? These are the lanes, okay? And this is our starting point. Okay, I'm not able to draw it properly, but you need to understand. And then in this lane only one player basically gonna swim, right? Here one player, here one player, here one player, and here one player, and maybe we will have the ending line over here, right? So swim lane diagram is coming from this particular analogy only. So for example, if I take you one example, let's say there is a project going on, okay, and we have to basically provide the task to different teams. So first of all you will be able to identify, let me now take a table in order to create this. Okay, I'm gonna remove this, I'm gonna click on the table. Okay, let's take a diagram, and yeah, maybe table, and let me choose one of them from here. Yeah, we can take this. Okay, this is asking me to upgrade. All right, I can choose the free one, not a problem over here. Let's take this grid. Okay, yeah, so you can consider one grid as a one lane. Okay, so let's suppose first of all I'm gonna write it over here, this is my sales team. Okay, let's make it little bit increasing. Yeah, then here let's suppose one team is credit card team, who is gonna provide you the credit card. Okay, credit card team. What is going? Credit card team. Then you will have another team, let's suppose maybe manager, or some kind of system. Let's say manager is there. Okay, now this is one lane. So here you will be providing the basically their workloads. So basically this sales team is gonna receive the application, right? Receive the application. Now this is gonna be represented by some whenever there is a process happening, you need to represent it by boxes, right? And if there is a decision making, you need to show it by the diamond. Okay, so they are gonna receive the application, then maybe they are gonna process this particular information, if this is a proper candidate or not for the credit card, and then finally they are gonna send this to credit card team. Now credit card team is gonna check their maybe CIBIL score and do the other things, and based upon that they are gonna ask for their manager for the approval, and then manager is gonna give the approval in order to issue this credit card. Okay, so basically in the lane you are gonna write roles and responsibilities of each and every team member, and of different departments as well. Okay, so this is what swim lane diagram looks like. Here I'm not able to create it very properly, but we will generally do it in this way. You will create this lanes, right? This kind of lanes, and then within the lanes you will write the team members, and then you will write a boxes. In the boxes you will write the process, then you will create the arrow, and then maybe if some decision is happening, then you will use this diamond, right? And in this way you will be able to do this entire thing, right? So this is a swim lane diagram. And why we use it? So as you can understand, in order to prevent basically conflicting roles, or in order to remove the confusion from the intra department or interdepartment team, we use this. Okay, so this is how we generally create this swim lane diagram. Okay, I hope you are able to understand the explanation, though I'm not able to create it very good diagram, but you can try it one. Okay, from your end you can just take one business scenario and then you can create one and practice it, right? Okay, I hope you understand the swim lane diagram. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 30 and here is the question for the day. What is difference between a workflow and a business process? Okay, so we need to understand and answer this question in such a way that we as a BA we are able to understand the technical part as well as the non-technical, which is functional or a business part of the entire organization. So in order to answer this question, you can say a business process is a high level end-to-end sequence of activities. Okay, high level end-to-end sequence of activities. Okay, designed to achieve a specific business goals. Designed to achieve a specific business goals. Okay, business goals, right? So business basically process, it's gonna focus on what? It's gonna focus on business objectives. Business objectives, it's gonna focus on customer value. Customer value, it's gonna focus on cross functional flow. Cross functional flow, and it's also gonna focuses on policies and rules of the businesses. Policies and rules of the entire business. Okay, so this is what we call it as a business process, right? It's not gonna focus on one particular task, but it's gonna focus on end-to-end sequence of activities which is designed for to achieve the specific business goals. Okay, if I give you the example, so I can say order to cash process. Okay, let's suppose this is one of the business process which we want to establish. So what are the high level steps involved in this? So basically customer is gonna put the, you can say, place the order. Customer places the order. Okay, then order get validated. Order validation is another step we have. Then we can say payment processing. Payment processing is another step, and then invoice generation. So this is order to cash process. Okay, this is one of the business process example I'm giving you. Okay, and it can span in multiple department. It can go or span in multiple departments, so it involve multiple departments, right? For example for invoice generation it can go to different department. For payment processing it can go to different department. For order validation it can go to different department, and there are bunch of things happening, right? Okay, whereas what is workflow, let's understand that now. So this is the whole thing is the business process. Now let's talk about the workflow. So workflow is what? Workflow is a detailed step-by-step execution path of a specific task within a process. So you see, for example, this is the one of the business process. Now within this one of the business process we have multiple steps, right? Now if you take one particular step, you can call that particular step as a workflow, because in this step also we have multiple sub steps, right, in order to complete this bigger one step. So that one step is called as workflow, right? So workflow is an integral part of the business process. It's not outside of the business process, right? Okay, now let me give you one clear example for this. So let's say there is one business process, and the business process is to business process, let me write in this way, and the process is we need to approve the loan. Okay, we need to create a business process in order to approve the loan. Okay, so loan approval system, maybe you can say loan approval business process we need to create. Okay, so this is a business process. Now the high level steps under it, what could be the high level steps? So number one could be maybe application submission first. So people are gonna come to their website or anywhere, they are gonna submit their application. So application submission is the one step. Second step is credit evaluation. Credit evaluation. Okay. Then third step is maybe approval decision, and fourth step is finally disbursement, right? This is how basically whenever you go to the bank, and these are the basic general procedure they do, right? Final disbursement. Okay, disbursement. Now inside this four step, if you see this, we you can take any step. So let's suppose I'm taking this credit evaluation. So credit evaluation will become my credit eval will become my workflow. Now within this workflow there are several steps, right, involved. For example, system pulls the credit information, pulls the credit info, right? So this is one step. Then maybe analyst review the documents, analyst review the docs, right? And then right, and then maybe one step can be risk score calculation, whether that particular employee is how much risk it has, if we give the maybe a loan to that particular employee. So risk score calculation, right? And then finally maybe you will have final decision. If that score is less than some particular threshold value, then you are gonna give the disbursement, right? Or maybe you will approve the decision, right? You will approve it for the disbursement part. If the score is greater than threshold, then you can reject that. So this is one, you can say, workflow within this entire business process. And generally engineers focuses on this, right? You can say the hardcore engineers, or basically the developers, they are more focused on this particular workflow. But as a BA or as a business person, we should be able to have understanding of this entire business process as well as this workflow, right? I hope you are able to understand the difference between business process and workflow, and you like the explanation as well. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hi everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 31, okay? And in this day 31, we are going to start with statistics part. In the previous videos, we have covered till 30th questions, and those was related to section one was related to business analyst fundamentals. So I asked you 10 to 15 fundamental questions. Then there was a section 2 on which I asked you the question based on the requirement gathering and documentation. Then how business process works, in which we have learned BPMN, Kaizen technique, and other different things, right? Lean process as well. Now today we are starting with this section 4, statistics and quantitative analysis, and that's why from today's onwards, like from day 31, I will be asking you statistics related question. So here is the question for the day. What are the different types of data? Nominal, ordinal, internal, ratio. Give examples of each. Okay. So generally this question is basically interviewer is trying to understand your understanding with respect to different data types. So in general we have only two types of data types. One is categories and another is numerical. Okay, numerical. Only these two data types exist. Now within the categories, actually we have you can say subcategories. So within the categorical data set, we have ordinal, nominal. Okay, so these comes under the categories. And within the numerical, we have interval, ratio. Now let's understand each of them one by one. Okay, so let's first understand the nominal data. Nominal data. So first of all, nominal data is going to come under the categorical data. So categorical data means textual data, right? Now what does it mean by the nominal? So nominal means it will not have any order. For example, if I take an example of genders, so this can be one of the column in your data, and gender can have male slash female slash someone says prefer not to say. Now this doesn't have any ordering, right? We don't give any more priority to male or any more priority to female. for us both are same, both carry equal weightages. So we don't have any, you can say, priority, or someone doesn't have any higher order or a lower order in this case. Okay, so that comes under the nominal data. What are the other example of nominal data? So gender is one of them, blood group, right? Blood group is another example. Then we have, maybe countries, right? Countries is also another example. Now let's talk about another data type, which is ordinal. So as the name suggests, it is going to have, some ordering structure, right? So ordinal data type will have some kind of you can say ordering. For example, if I give you, let's say, education level, right? So obviously if someone has done the BE, or if someone has done BTech, and if someone has done the MTech, or maybe PhD, then obviously these guys will have the higher weightages than this particular guys, right? So it will have some ordering, right? So education level is one of the example of the ordinal data. What can be the other examples? So other examples, maybe let's say satisfaction level of the employees in the company, satisfaction level, right? We can have a satisfaction level, let's say low, medium, right, high, something like this. So this is another example, right, of the ordinal data. Now comes numerical data. So within the numerical data we have interval, right? Now what is interval means? So interval means, as the name suggests, first of all it's going to be numerical data and it will have some interval, right? So interval, when I say, for example, let's say let's suppose, IQ score. Okay, different people have different IQs, right? So IQ score, you can have scores like 120 or 130, 140, like that, right? So it will have some, this intervals, right? So that comes under this. Okay, and maybe if I take another example, then we can have let's say calendar years, right? So 2000, 2001, right? So it will, you see, 2000, 2001, 2002, it will have some internal, right? So we call it as a interval data. Then comes ratio data. So ratio data is simple. You can have, purely like numbers. For example, salary, right? Salary of the employee. So if you take salary, it can be, it is in the ratio, right? So ratio means that doesn't mean, it's going to be in the form of ratio 1/2 or 3/4, 4/4, not like that ratio. But ratio means here, basically you can say a numerical true zero exists. Okay, so when I say numerical true zero exists, that means salary can have, it doesn't gonna depend upon the range, but rather than it will have the proper values, right? So it can have, float value, it can have integer value. All of these things comes under the ratio only. Okay, so salary is one of the example, salary of the employees, or maybe, height, weight, all of these are example of the ratios. Okay, so these are the 4 data types grouped into the 2 data types, categorical and numerical, and this is how you can explain to the interviewer. I hope you are able to understand and you like the explanation. I'm going to see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 32 and here is the question for the day. What are measures of central tendency? Okay, so it's a core statistic concept and you can answer this question in this way, that measure of central tendency is basically described as, that how well or how, your data is distributed with respect to, center, or you can say mean. So basically it's a, tendency to describe this, the data that from the center, how it is ranging. Okay, that we call it as a central tendency. And there are different techniques to measure it. We have one technique called as mean. Okay, mean. Another is mode and another is median, right? So these are the 3 things: mean, median, mode we have, right? So mean means what? Let's suppose if you have the data from 1 to 10, right? 1 to 10. So in order to calculate the mean, you can add all of them and then divide by total number of samples you have, right? So that comes under the mean. Mode means the most frequent number, right? For example, if 6 is repeating in your data multiple times, so that will become the mode. And median means what? Median means the middle 50th percentile value. Okay, so 50th percentile. Okay, now in order to calculate this median for this particular number, you need to follow the three steps. One, first of all, you need to arrange the numbers in the ascending order. That is very much important. Whenever you can, if you have given your number in any order, it can be, your data can be in any order. So in order to calculate the median, you need to arrange it in the ascending order. Once you arrange it, you need to count the total number of samples you have. For example, you can have even number of samples or odd number of samples. So in case of odd number of samples, the middle value is going to be your median, but in case of even numbers, you have to take two two middle numbers, and then you have to add it and then divide it by 2. For example, for this, in this case, 5 and 6 both are in the middle, right? 4 numbers from here, 4 numbers from here, so 5 and 6, you need to add it and then you need to divide it by 2, right? So that is gonna be give to the median value. So this is the formula for mean, median, mode, and this is how you can calculate the measure of central tendency. And what it signifies, remember, it signifies how your data, all your data points are related to, or you can say spread across the mean value or a center value. So that is what it signifies, right? So it's a central tendency, describe the center of typical value of a data set, how it is available to the center, and how far it is, what your data points are going from your basically central value, right? You can answer this, and after answering this particular question, you can also give additional information to the interviewer, which is not asked. For example, if you see here, they are only asking what is measure of central tendency, but after answering this, you can go one step more forward, and then you can give some additional information, so that interviewer will be impressed by your answer. So you can say that this mean, median, mode serve different purposes when we are gonna treat the outlier part. Okay, treat the outliers. So in order to treat the outliers, if let's suppose you have the outliers in your data, then you cannot replace it, the outliers, or if you have some null value in the data, then you cannot use mean value, because mean is going to shift your data from center to something else. So in that case, you can use the mode or median of the data, right? But if your data is normally distributed, so let me give you the conditions. Okay, let me write all the conditions. So if the data is not having the normal distribution, in that case, your mean value and is approximately equal to, right? So let me use this symbol, approximately equal to mode value, and that is approximately equal to your median value. So in that case, you can use any one of them to remove the outliers or treat the outliers. Okay, but if your data is not normally distributed, if it is a right skewed data, okay, right skewed data, so in that case, we need to use in that case, what will happen, mean is going to be greater than median. Okay, mean is going to be greater than median, so we should use median in order to treat the outliers. Okay, and third case is, let's suppose if it is a left skewed data, in that case your mean is less than median. Okay, and for left skewed data, you can use mean, or maybe you can use the you can say mode in order to treat the outliers. So you can give this additional information so that interviewer will be impressed. Okay, I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hi everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 33, and here is your question for the day. Explain the difference between population and sample, and when do you use each? Okay, so let's answer this question. So population is basically a term which uses the entire group or your entire data. Okay, let me correct the spelling and increase it little bit. Yeah, so it is not pollution, it is population. So what is population? Population is basically your entire group data and which includes all the members. Okay, so whenever we are gonna do any kind of statistics, we have two type of things, two type of data: population data and sample data. So population data means all the data. For example, if you want to do some kind of survey, let me remind you of the exit poll. Okay, so remember, whenever there is a election in India, we do something called as exit poll. We try to understand the opinion of the people so that we can predict the outcome of that particular election. So we do the exit poll. Okay, news anchors and all of these news platforms, they do this exit poll. Now in order to conduct this exit poll, they have two options. Let's suppose if the election is happening in the Maharashtra, then they can go to each and every person of the Maharashtra who is given the had given the vote, or who has maybe age greater than 18, and they can ask for each and every person that what is your opinion with respect to this current election, and then they can collect all the data and then compile the information. But do you think, is it really possible to do that? No. So that's why what they do, they sample the peoples. Now if they are going to do the process for each and every human, we call it as a population. If you are going to consider all the people of the Maharashtra, that is called as population. But that is not feasible, that is not possible, and practically. So what they do, they select some of the region, different region of the Maharashtra, and then they pick only few peoples, right, randomly. So there are techniques of sampling also, random sampling, maybe different other samplings, but randomly they select people and they ask their opinion with respect to the current, you can say, elections, right? So that selection of the different people randomly and asking the question, we call it as those data as a sample data, right? So this is the difference between population and sample. Okay, now you can also in normal terms, you can say sample is a subset of the population. Okay, sample is the subset of the population. Now there are different aspect, let me cover that. So you can say these are the aspects, then, or let me create a table on which we can compare this population and sample. Let me, yeah, let's take the table and let put it over here, aspects, and here we can put population and then sample. Yeah, remaining field is, you can delete it. So let's start comparing them. Oh, this didn't changed. I need to click on save. Population, and we have sample. Now what are the different aspects? One is size, right? So with respect to size, you can say in the population we consider the entire group, right? And in the sample we just select the subset of some people, right? Subset. Then we have measures. So what are the different measures we use inside the population and sample? So we use parameters like mu. So there is no symbol on the keyboard, we call it as a mu, and let me just copy this mu symbol, right? So let's call it as a mu symbol, and yeah, this is the symbol, right? Let me comment over here. So what is this mu? So mu is nothing but it's a mean of the entire sample, and then we have something entire population, and then we have standard deviation. Okay, so let me also copy it, SD notation. SD stands for normal standard deviation, you see, standard deviation, or you can say, yeah, this one. Let me copy it properly. Yeah, so this is our standard deviation, right? as t. Similarly, in this sample we denoted by mu denoted by x bar, okay, x, and then on top of that we will have a small bar, okay, and then you can say standard deviation is denoted by a small s, okay. So that is the difference between these notations we use inside the population and inside the sample. Then we have cost. This is another factor. So performing entire statistics on the population, it's a costly process, right? But doing the same thing on the sample, it's a fairly, you can say, not very costly. So it's a cheaper process, or not cheaper actually, but less costly, okay, less costly as compared to the population, okay. Then we have accuracy. So you see, if you do the exit poll of all the people, this is going to be more accurate, right? More accurate. But this is going to be less accurate, right? But this is give fair idea. So that's why we use this, right? And then we last have risk, right? So here we have no sampling error risk, right? So you don't have to pick out the samples, right? So no sampling error risk. But since you are gonna take these samples, so there is always going to be the sampling error. You might have bias. You can if you are choosing the people, you might choose only more male candidates rather than more female candidates. So that can be one of the sampling error. So here chances of error is high because we are going to choose these samples. So on these different parameters, you can compare the mu and you can say population and sample, and this is the difference between them, right? Now when to choose which one, that is also the question. So in order to choose always we choose sample only. But let's suppose if your data is not very huge, let's suppose you have only 2000 or 1000 samples, so in that case you can choose the population as well, right? If the data is not huge, choose the population. If data is very huge, in that case we go for the sampling approach, right? We choose the samples. I hope you are able to understand the difference between population and sample and when to use each. I will gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 34 and here is the question for the day. What is normal distribution and why it is important in business analytics? Okay, so we have studied this in our stats lecture. So how you can answer this question? So you can say a normal distribution is basically a distribution curve, or you can say it's a continuous probability distribution curve which is symmetrical and which looks like bell curve. If you draw this, it's gonna look like this, okay? It's a bell shaped curve, right? And you can say some random variables follow this bell shaped curve, and whenever they follow this bell shaped curve or a normal distribution, so we generally have this thing that mean is almost equal to median, and that is also mostly nearly equal to mode. So whenever a any random variable follow this normal distribution, in that case mean, median or mode is going to have the similar or very similar or same value, right? So normal distribution, it's a probability density function. It's a continuous probability density function which follows this symmetry. So basically on x-axis you can say all your data points, and this is a probability density function curve, right? And in this case what will happen, all your data points, okay, probability of, I can write this. So whenever a random variable follow any normal distribution, in that case probability of that data points lying between so it's gonna lie in this way, okay? So in the middle you will have your mu, and mu means your mean, and then you will have this point, we call it as a mu plus sigma. Now what is sigma? Sigma is the standard deviation, okay? So mu plus sigma. Then you will have another point, you call it as a mu plus 2 sigma, okay? Then you have mu plus 3 sigma. Similarly on the left hand side you will have mu minus sigma, mu minus 2 sigma, and mu minus 3 sigma. So all of your data points, almost 99.7% of your data points, okay, 99.7% of your data points are gonna lie between this mu minus 3 sigma to mu plus 3 sigma. So associated with this we have three rules actually. The first rule is basically, probability of lying down the data points between mu minus sigma and mu plus sigma. So between this particular range, okay, between this particular range, we have the probability of lying down our data points as 66.6%. Okay, 66.6%. Then there is a second rule, the probability of coming all your data point between mu minus 2 sigma. So basically this region, okay, I'm talking about this region, are going to be almost around 95%. And then there is a third rule that which says probability of lying down the data between mu minus 3 sigma and mu plus 3 sigma. So basically the region from which starts from here and end it over here, we will have 99.7% of the entire data. And whenever a random variable follow this kind of distribution, we call it as a normal distribution or a bell shaped curve. Okay, so this curve has another name as well, we call it as a bell shaped curve. Okay, bell shaped curve. Okay, so this is what about the normal distribution. Now why it is important in business analytics? Okay, so whenever we do business analytics, within that we sometimes do the A/B testing, right? A/B testing. So in that case, this normal distribution is very important. Also, sometimes we do let me make it as a bullet point. Okay, now we also do some types Z test, T test, this different kind of testing we do in order to maybe establish something. Maybe let's suppose if someone is doing some kind of claim, so basically it comes under the inferential statistics. So in inferential statistics, we perform Z test, T test in order to verify something in different business scenarios. So over there also this bell shaped curve comes into the picture. Okay, and there also it is helpful, right? Apart from that, it is used in the financial risk modeling. Okay, so these are the some domains, financial risk modeling, right? Over there we use it. Then we can use it inside the demand forecasting, right? Demand forecasting, if you want to forecast some of the demands, right? So in that case also this bell shaped curve into the picture, right? So that's why it is very important in business domains. And this is how basically what is this normal distribution. I hope you like the explanation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 35 and here is the question for the day. How do you identify and handle outliers in your data? Okay, so before answering this question, first of all you should be able to explain the interviewer that what is outliers. So generally outliers are those data points, right? Outliers are those data points which is sometimes unwanted, and sometimes they are basically out of normal, right? Out of normal range, which we want, but it is, for example, if I give you example, let's suppose you are working in a banking system where every customer is generally making the transaction between, let's suppose from 1 rupees to 1 lakh rupees, right? That is the normal range of the data. But if on a unusual day, let's suppose if someone is gonna make the transaction of 10 lakh, so that will come as a outlier data. Now you can't say that that data is not required, right? That data is wanted data, but that is gonna come under the outlier because that is not in the normal range, right? Similarly, if I give you one example, let's suppose take the height of the peoples. Okay, so generally height of the people goes maybe let's say from 100 centimeter to maybe 200 or 210 centimeters. Okay, so let's suppose this is the typical range. But if someone is writing a height as 500 centimeter, in that case that is definitely an outlier and that is unwanted data. So in that case we need to remove it because no one can have the height of 500 centimeter, right? So that is again a outlier, but this time it is a unwanted data. So that is called as outlier, which is not in a normal range. Okay, now based upon the different situations, outliers can be it can be categorized in three you can say things. So let me write it. First of all, it can go the data error. For example, the height example which I have given you. So 500 centimeter, definitely it's a data error, right? So we need to treat it accordingly. Then second is rare but valid observation. Valid observation. So that again I have given you one example, the banking example. 10 lakh transaction is a valid observation, but it's a rare, right? And third thing, it's a business critical signals. For example, some kind of fraud. Okay, let's say from your account, like someone is asking for, maybe let's say 10 lakh money, like unusually. So that's a fraud signal, right? Because in the previous in the history you haven't made the 10 lakh transaction, and if that is coming, that obviously we can treat it as a false or fraud, right? And then maybe spikes or failure, something like that, right? Some unusual spikes, then failure, something like that, that comes under the business critical signals. Now depending upon situation to situation, we need to treat these outliers in a different way. Okay, so first of all, let me show you how we can identify the outliers. What are the different ways? So the very first way is we can use this box plot method, right? With the help of this box plot method, how we can identify the outliers. So it uses actually something called as IQR, stands for interquartile range. Okay, so in the box plot, basically we try to create this kind of box plot. Let me draw one. Okay, so this is gonna how it's look like. You will have one box. This box plot is also called as box and whisker plot, and then you will create its whiskers like this. Okay, so this is a whisker, and like this is called as box. So in the middle of this box you will have median of it. Okay, median is also called as 50 percentile. Then this is, we call it as a lower fence, LF. Okay, LF, it's a lower fence. Then we have this point, we call it as a HF, higher fence. Okay, higher fence. And then we have this is called as 75 percentile. Okay, and we have over here one more thing, and this is known as, let me type it, 25 percentile. Okay, so in order to plot this box plot, you will require this lower fence 25 percentile, median which is 50th percentile, then 75th percentile, and then higher fence. Okay, so how we can calculate this? Okay, all of these data points. So in order to calculate these data points, it uses something called as IQR. Now IQR is nothing but a Q1 minus 1.5 times, okay, 1.5 times IQR, and then Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR. Now IQR stands for interquartile range. Okay, interquartile range, that means interquartile range is basically, let me give you the formula for that as well. So interquartile range is basically the difference between this 75 percentile and 25 percentile. Now what is this Q1 and Q3? So Q1 and Q3 is basically this 25th percentile and 75th percentile, right? Okay, and this is how basically you will be able to create this entire box plot, and you will be able to get the normal range of the data. Now whatever data is coming after this higher fence, or whatever data is coming below this lower fence, we are going to treat or call these data points as outliers data. So these data are outliers data. Whatever are coming below the lower fence or more than higher fence, we are going to call it as an outlier. And box plot or a whisker and box plot is one of the method in order to identify it, right? Okay, then we have IQR is very simple. It's Q3 minus Q1. That's the formula we have. And in order to find it out, the like the range for higher fence and lower fence. So for higher fence, this is the formula, right? With the help of this, you will be able to get the higher fence. Sorry, this is the lower fence formula. The first one is the lower fence because minus is written, right? So q1 is this minus 1.5 times iqr, right? And iqr is nothing but q3 minus q1. So this is the q3 value and this is the q1 value, and this is the q3 plus 1.5 times iqr is basically higher fence formula. So this is lower fence and higher fence formula, right? So this is one of the method. Then we have, you know, the basically you can say percentile method. So let me write it over here. Second method is we have percentile method. Okay, percentile method. Now with the help of percentile method also you will be able to get it. So basically generally it depends upon business to business, but you can, how you will be able to get it. So you will get, you know, the mostly you can say 99th percentile, 99th percentile you will be able to calculate. And apart from that, whatever data is coming on beyond that, we are going to treat it as an outlier. Similarly on the lower side you are going to calculate the first percentile. Okay, first percentile data, and whatever is coming lower than that we are going to call it as a outlier, right? Then we have different other methods, you know, like you can use some you know, machine learning techniques, right? So you can use this db scan. This is one of the algorithm inside the machine learning, which is a advanced technique. But as a BA, if you are, you know, just aware of these terms, you will be able to impress the interviewer. So you can use this db scan, or you know, then there is a isolation forest. These are some of the techniques with the help of which also you will be able to detect the outliers, or you can say you know, the anomaly in your data. So outliers are sometimes also called as anomaly. Okay, so we try to detect the anomalies in our data, right? All right, so these are the methods. Now how you are going to treat the outliers. So treating of the outliers, you know, it's going to depend, right? Depend on the context. Okay, depend on the context. So first of all, let's suppose if the context is, let's say, you know, when we can say we can remove it. So when we can say let's remove the outliers from the data completely. So we can say in order to remove the outliers, if it is, you know, data error problem, data entry error problem, data entry error, in that case, yes, you can remove the outlier for sure. If it is, you know, impossible value, for example, if age is equal to, let's say, 300, so no one can in this era at least age 300, right? So you can remove this error. Let's consider the second case where, you know, we can you know, we can do the cap of for the outliers. Now let's understand what is the meaning of cap. So cap means adjusting it, right? So in order to adjust it, let's suppose when we can do that. So let's suppose, you know, if upper or lower percentile threshold is common in finance and business analytics. So in that case you can, you know, maybe replace the value. Let's say, you know, you have detected one outlier where, you know, it is giving the value, let's say some extreme values. Let's say, you know, if I give you one example. So let's say, you know, you are working in the finance domain. Okay, and you have used let's suppose you are getting the data in this way, that salaries of the people. So in that case, you know, you will be able to see that some of the salaries are going, you know, very high, some of the salaries are going very low, and few people will be having, you know, in the middle, right? So in that case you can use some kind of log transformation, right, in order to, you know, make the entire range in the, you know, maybe 0 to 1, let's suppose. Okay, 0 to 1, so that you will not be able to face the, you know, this outlier problem. So this is also we try to, you know, adjust in this way by applying some kind of transformation, because, you know, salaries will definitely, if you are going to use this IQR method, box method, it is going to be showing the that yes, you will have the outliers in the data, but those are, you know, valid outliers. We cannot directly remove them, we need to treat them. So in order to treat them, you can apply the log transformation, or there is another transformation called as, you know, square root transformation. So these different transformations we can apply and reduce their ranges, so that now it will not show that we have the, you know, basically you can say outliers in our data, right? And sometimes, you know, we need to keep it as it is, right? So there is a third case, we need to keep the data as it is. Okay, keep it as it is. The banking example which I have given you, right? If someone is making the transaction of 2 lakh, even though it is unusual and it is you can say outlier, but we need to keep it for the analysis. Then only we don't have to remove it. Then only you will be able to understand what are the different anomalies in your data, right? So this is how we are gonna treat it. It depends upon situation to situation. Not every time we need to remove the outliers. That is not the true thing, but we need to analyze the context, right? I hope you are able to understand how you can identify the outliers and how you can treat them. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hi everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 36th and here is the question for the day. Explain the concept of correlation. What is the difference between correlation and causation? Okay, so correlation, you can say it's a statistical method with the help of which we can able to identify the relationship between the two variables or two random variables. Okay, so we can able to identify the relationship between two random variables with the help of this correlation. Now correlation, for example, what let me explain you the meaning of it. So let's suppose if there are two random variables, let's suppose height and weight. Okay, and if we have bunch of values, and if we want to find it out the correlation or is there any relationship between these two variables, in that case we can use the correlation. And if height is increasing, let's suppose if height is increasing, okay, and similarly weight is also increasing when height is increasing, in that case we can say that both the variables are positively correlated variables. Okay, let's take a second case. If height is increasing, okay, but weight is decreasing, okay, weight is decreasing, in that case what we can say, that both the variables are correlated but they are negatively correlated. By increasing one, other is decreasing. Okay, so that's the second case. Third case, if height is decreasing, right, and weight is also decreasing, in that case also it's a positively correlated variables, right? So whether height is increasing, weight is increasing, or if both are decreasing, in that case they are positively correlated. If height is increasing, weight is also if height is increasing and weight is decreasing, in that case they are negatively correlated. And there can be one fourth case where if you are increasing the height, then there is no significant change in the weight. Okay, so in that case you can say that there is very low or no relationship between this height and weight. Okay, so that is comes under the fourth condition. So with respect to this, we can gather four conditions over here, that the positive and we also denote it by a symbol called as R. Okay, correlation. So if it is greater than 0, right, in that case we can say both the variables are positively correlated, right? Positive correlation. If the R value is less than 0, right, in that case we can say negative correlation. And if R values lies greater than 0, right, but or you can say if R value is equal to 0, in that case they have no correlation. Now there are bunch of different parameters, or you can say formula. For example, there is Pearson correlation coefficient, with the help of which you will be able to find out the exact relationship between two variables, and the range goes from 0 to 1. Similarly, there is something called as Pearson correlation coefficient, and then we have Spearman correlation coefficient. Okay, correlation coefficient. With the help of this also you will be able to find it out the relationship between the two variables, right? So these are some of the method. And correlation gives you basically the idea between two variables, if one is increasing, other is increasing or not, other is decreasing or not. So is there any relationship between two variables or not? Now let's try to answer this particular part. What is the difference between correlation and causation? Okay, now we have understood the meaning of correlation, but correlation doesn't mean causation. Correlation doesn't directly mean causation. What is the difference between them? So Causation is basically, it's a, you can say causation means one variable directly influences the other one. One variable directly influences the other one, right? Other one. So basically, if you are changing height and it is directly influencing, not by some random chance, it is directly influencing the other variable, that is weight. In that case, you can say that yes, both the variables are, highly correlated, as well as there are, underlying meaning behind that, right? So if you're changing the one, other is also changing, so there is direct causation involved in the. However, correlation doesn't explain you the direct causation. If you're increasing the height and if you're increasing the weight, obviously there are, if there are correlation, but we can't say that there is, causation as well. Let me give you one more example. If I say, the, let's suppose sales of the, maybe let's suppose, fish in summer and crime in the summer, let's suppose both are increasing. Now that doesn't mean that they have direct causation. Definitely they can have correlation, because they are in, if the sales of the fish is increasing in the summer, crime is also increasing in the summer. That is already given in the data set. Also, if you are going to look into it, you will be able to, derive that yes, correlation exists. But that doesn't mean, that if sales of the fish is increasing, crime is also increasing. No, that's not a causation part of it, right? There is no such cause, right, that one variable is directly going to influence it. It's just by random chance that this is happening. So we cannot say that there is direct causation, but yes, correlation exists. So you can say that just, two variables move together that doesn't mean, that they are causing each other to, maybe impact or influence. It can be a random chance due to which correlation is happening. Let me give you one more example. Okay, if I say, let's suppose, increasing the advertising budget directly increases the brand awareness. Okay, increasing the uh, budget of the ad is directly gonna increase the brand awareness. Now definitely here we can see correlation will also exist, as well as causation will also happen, right? If you are going to increase the budget of the ad, obviously it's going to increase the awareness of your brand. So here we have causation, right? That if you are going to increase it, this is going to happen for sure. Or even if we are not sure, that maybe 80 or 90% we are sure. So there is some kind of causation involved over here, right? So that comes under the causation. Now if you just simply compare both of them, so let me write it in this way: correlation and causation. If you're gonna compare it on some different parameter, it will gonna look like this. So in the causation, it's basically measure the association. It measures the association. Okay, if any relationship there or not between two variable, is there any associationship is there or not between two variables. Whereas if you talk about causation, so it basically check implies cause and effect. Okay, it implies cause and effect. Okay, so that comes under the causation. Similarly, it doesn't prove any impact. Okay, in the correlation, it does not prove any kind of impact. But whereas if you go into the causation, it proves the impact, right? Third one, this is a observational. Okay, it's a observational thing, whereas this requires experiment proof. Okay, if you want to establish the causation, it requires experimental proof. Okay, experimental proof. And the last thing is, this can be coincidental. So this can be by chance, and this must have some logical mechanism, right, in order to prove it. So it should have some logical mechanism, right? So these are some broader points on which you can compare the correlation and causation. Okay, Now the thing comes, how do we establish the causation? So how we can say that two variable are causing each other to influence, right? So how we can establish the causation? In order to establish the causation, there are multiple things. One is we need to do the A/B testing, right? Controlled A/B testing, we need to run it. So with the help of this, if results are favorable, we can say yes, causation exists. Second thing is randomization. You can perform the randomization. Okay. Third thing, we need to eliminate the confounding variables, and let me write it over here. Third thing is we need to eliminate the confounding variables. What do I mean by confounding variables? So confounding variable are those variable which is showing the correlation but we cannot prove it. So we need to eliminate those confounding variable. And fourth thing is we need to do the statistical testing, right? Statistical testing in order to prove the causation. So these are some four things we need to take into the consideration whenever we are establishing the causation. If I give you one example, let's suppose if I say that website redesign is gonna increase the conversion rate. Okay, it's gonna increase the conversion rate. If this is my statement, so I cannot directly say that they are causing each other, right? I mean, if you are gonna redesign the website, conversion rate will gonna increase. Even though your data is showing, let's suppose if you have redesigned the things, your conversion rate is increasing, that only mean that it is happening, it is showing some correlation, but it doesn't show that it has some causation. In order to prove that there is a causation, you need to do the A/B testing, proper A/B testing, and if that's gonna show the results, right? If that's gonna show the result, in that case only you can say that yes, it is like causation exists between these two variables. Otherwise it is happening by random, by chance, right? So I hope you are able to understand the difference between causation and correlation. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 37 and here is the question for the day. What is hypothesis testing? Explain null and alternative hypothesis with the business examples. Okay. So hypothesis testing is a statistical method used to determine whether there is enough evidence in sample data, in order to support some business claims. Okay. So basically it's a statistical method, or you can say test, with the help of which we will be able to validate the claims, or you can say business claims by checking in the sample data whether that sample data has the enough evidence or not. Okay, enough evidence or not, right? So it's that method with the help of which we will be able to validate the business claims by checking the, you can say, sample data, and within the sample data do we have enough evidence or not. So what are the different you can say steps involved in it? Let me write each and every one of them, and what are the different key components we have in this hypothesis testing. So some of the key terms we have, the first term we have is called as null hypothesis. Okay, we denote it by H0 or H0. Okay, so H0 or H0 we call it as. Then we have second term called as alternative hypothesis. Okay, and we denote it by H1. Okay, H1. Then we have third term, and it is called as significance level, and we denote it by alpha. Don't worry about it, I'm going to explain you each and every term. Okay, so we have alpha. Right now I'm not writing a symbol, just I'm writing the English name of it. Then we have fourth important term, we call it as a test statistics. So which test we are going to perform on this given problem statement, we are going to choose the statistics. We have multiple tests, Z test, T test. Let me write it over here. We have Z test, we have T test, we have chi-square test. Okay, chi-square test. We have ANOVA test. right? ANOVA test, we have regression test, multiple tests are there, and we need to choose it according to problem statement. Then final thing we have is p-value. Okay, fifth point is p-value. So p-value is called as probability value, and then finally we make a decision that whether we are gonna consider that null hypothesis is true or not. So that comes under the decision. So these are major 6, you can say, steps, or you can say terms available inside the hypothesis testing in order to reach from the problem statement to conclusion of the problem, right? Now let me explain you each one of them one by one. So let's first come to null hypothesis. And what is null hypothesis? So null hypothesis represent no effect. Okay, so let's suppose if someone is coming and claiming that if you are gonna buy my particular plan, it's gonna increase your revenue by 30%. So in order to buy their plan and then test it, first of all we have to establish a fact. We call it as a null hypothesis, that even if I'm gonna buy your plan, nothing will gonna change, and that is comes under the null hypothesis. We call it as a null hypothesis. Then we have second term called as alternate hypothesis. So in the alternate hypothesis we will say, okay, I'm gonna buy your plan and that's gonna increase my revenue. That comes under the alternate hypothesis. So very first 2 steps we have to define the null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis means no effect, no difference. Okay, and alternate hypothesis means whatever claim, the business claim someone is making, we are going to consider it as a true. Okay, so these are both contradictory versions. We have null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Then once these 2 things are defined, after that what we will do, we will gonna calculate the we are gonna perform the testing on it. Okay, so based upon the problem statement we are gonna choose the test. Okay, whether it's a Z test, T test, chi-square test, ANOVA test, regression test. So based upon the problem statement we are gonna choose the test. Okay, now within the test, what are the different steps involved? So let me write that. First of all, we are gonna collect the sample data. Okay, and then we are gonna run the A/B testing. Okay, so the claim is what? If I give you the example, the claim was like, if you are gonna buy my subscription or buy my bundle, it's gonna increase your revenue, right? So that was the thing. And now before buying that plan, we are still running our business. So I need to divide my customer into 2 things. One, those who doesn't have the plan and they are using it normal, maybe we can call it as a version. And then after buying the plan, I'm gonna give that plan or that feature for maybe team B or maybe audience B or customer B, and they are using it. So I have to run this A/B testing in order to understand if there is any enough conversion rate or enough increase in revenue happening or not, right? So that is, we are going to run the A/B testing. So maybe A team will have the old design or old things, and then B group will have the new design, something like that, so that we will be dividing our audience into 2 segments. And let's suppose the old conversion rate, or old conversion rate, or you can say revenue, it was only 5%. Okay, so old conversion rate, or something, let's take the conversion rate example, it was 5%. And the new conversion rate, it was, let's suppose, increased by 1%, so we got 6%. Okay, 6%. Then what we have to do, that we need to validate whether this 1% change is happening by random chance, right? This 1% change is happening by random chance, or is there enough evidence available in the sample data, so that we can say yes, this actually works, we got 1% increase, right? So in third step, we will require the p value. Okay, we will require the p value. We call it as a probability value, and we are going to compare this p value with the significance level or value. Now generally this significance value alpha, we are going to consider it as 0.05%, sorry, 0.05, that means 5%. Okay, so if this p value in that test we have some multiple formulas. So here in the interview you don't have to explain the formula, you need to only give the brief step. So if this p value is greater than your alpha value, so in that case what is happening, the probability of getting the increase in the chance is greater than the alpha, which is significance value. So significance value we generally take it as a 0.05, which is 5%, but in some cases it can go 10%, 20% as well. So what this signifies, 5% signifies that if the p value is going to be 5%, that means 5% chances is there that whatever validation your claim you are making, it's a right claim, and we are going to consider it as a true if our p value is greater than going to be alpha. So if p value, that means probability, is greater than 5%, we will say okay, I'm gonna accept the alternate hypothesis, or you can say I'm gonna reject the null hypothesis. I'm gonna reject the null hypothesis, which is H naught. And the alternative statement of this is what? I'm gonna fail to reject the alternate hypothesis, which is H1. So you see, the statement is very bold. I'm not saying I'm going to accept the alternate hypothesis. I'm going to say I'm going to fail to reject the null hypothesis. That means, because why I'm making this statement, understand, because we are only getting the p value greater than some 5%, so maybe it can be 10%, 20%. That doesn't mean 100% we are sure that whatever claim you are saying, it's 100% we are sure that it's going to work. That's why I'm saying, by doing this test, statistical test, I'm only saying that I'm gonna fail to reject your alternate hypothesis. It might work, it might not work, but based upon these things, all the statistics, I'm saying that okay, fail to reject the null hypothesis. In which condition? If the p value is greater than alpha. If p value is going to be less than alpha, in that case definitely I'm gonna say I'm gonna reject the null hypothesis. I'm gonna reject the alternate hypothesis. I'm gonna accept the null hypothesis. So whatever claim you are doing, it's not correct, because the probability is very less. It is so less that it is lesser than alpha value, which is our significance or critical value as well, right? So these are the meaning of the alternate and alternate hypothesis, and you can say null hypothesis. And I hope you are able to understand the meaning of hypothesis testing, right? I'm gonna see you in the next one. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is the day 38, and here is the question for the day. What is p-value? How do you interpret it in decision making? So it's a follow-up question from the day 37. Remember, we have talked about hypothesis testing, null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, in which we have one term called as p-value. So you can consider that it's a a follow-up question based on that thing only. So interviewer is more trying to understand the p-value from you. Great. So you can answer this question in that way. The p-value is a probability of observing. So it's a probability of observing result as extreme as your sample results, assuming the null hypothesis is true. Okay. So it's a probability of observing the result as extreme as you can go by considering the null hypothesis to be true. So remember, we always compare this probability value, p value, with the alpha, right, significance value, and we consider the significance value as only 0.05 or 5%, and we try to compare if p value is greater than alpha, right, alpha. In that case, what we say that we are gonna reject the null hypothesis, So why we are saying that it's a probability value of observing the result as far as you can go by considering the null hypothesis to be true? Because you see, alpha value is very less, right, 0.05. So p value is that value on which we are taking a bet that null hypothesis is always going to be true. But if the p value is gonna beat this alpha value, which is 0.05, only 5%, in that case also we will say okay, we are gonna reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so we are saying that whatever your business claim is, we are at least we are not able to fail to reject it. Okay, we are not accepting it, but we are not also saying that it's gonna be completely you can say baseless claim. So it's not like that as well. So that's why it's a p value and very important value. This is how you can explain the p value. Okay, Now if I give you example, let's suppose if p value is, let's say if I give you the example 0.03. now here in this case, so if you compare p value, it is less than 0.05, right? So it is less than 0.05. in this case, what will happen, you can infer like this, that there is only a 3% probability of observing this result, only 3% probability of observing the result that null hypothesis will be true. Null hypothesis, or I can say h0 is true. h0 is true. So only 3% chances is there that h0 will be true, and in that case, we are gonna reject it, right? We are gonna reject it because only there is 3% chances that null hypothesis will be true, and we don't want that. At least we want 5% or more than 5%, 0.05 value in order to reject the null hypothesis, right? Cool. So yeah, that's what it is, and this is how basically you can explain you. Now if I give you one real business example, so let's take a scenario. Let's say there is a new checkout page launched. New checkout page is launched by some business, okay? And in this case, my null hypothesis is that new page does not improve any conversion. New page does not increase any conversion, okay? Any conversion. Whereas my alternate hypothesis h1 is saying that since we have added a new page for the checkout, it's gonna increase the conversion rate, okay? It's gonna increase the conversion, right? So these are my alternate hypothesis and null hypothesis. And let's suppose after doing all this test and each and everything, I will be able to get the p value is, let's suppose 0.02. so in this case, if you are going to compare this p value, right, p value with the significance value, so it's going to be obviously less than 0.05. so in this case, what you can infer, there is only 2% chance, of observing the results that null hypothesis is true. So that since only 2% chance is there, we will say p value is less than 0.05. so we will be not gonna reject the null hypothesis. So basically we will say fail to reject the null hypothesis, okay? We are not rejecting the null hypothesis, we are saying fail to reject the null hypothesis. That means there is only very less chance in order to reject the null hypothesis, so we are saying fail to reject the null hypothesis. That means we are kind of accepting the null hypothesis, right? So that's what you can infer it. I hope you are able to understand the meaning of p value, how it is connected to significance value, and what it signifies. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 39 and here is your question for the day. What is A/B testing? How do you design and analyze an A/B test? Okay, so you can answer this question in this way, that A/B testing is also called as split testing, okay? We also call it as a split testing, and it is designed for in order to, you can say, it's a test in order to control to perform the controlled experiment where you compare two versions of something to determine which performs better. So basically it's a test in which you segment the things, and then you are going to run the experiment for some time in order to come up with the conclusion that whether A version of the product or B version of the product or anything, which one is better, right? Which version is better for my audience. So it's that test, okay? So you can say that in order to do this, we generally divide the group into two parts. We call it as a group A, and this group is called as control group. Then you have group B. The group B is called as treatment group. treatment group. Okay, treatment group. So we give group A control group to the existing version of the product or existing version of the page, whatever you want to test it, you give them existing version. Okay, and that's why this is called as control group. And then to the treatment group we are going to give the new version of your maybe app or your page or your website or your maybe anything, whatever you want to test it. Okay, then we are going to measure a key metric and test whether the difference is statistically different or not. Okay, so we are going to decide our KPIs over here after segregated the audience. We are going to decide the KPIs. It can be revenue, it can be maybe conversion rate, it can be anything. And then we are going to run the experiment for few amount of time, and we are going to measure this KPI whether statistically they are changing or not between these two groups. In order to do that, let me give you some examples. Okay, so let's suppose I want to test a new buy button on my website. Okay, or any website, right? So first of all, version A, I will say earlier it was a blue button, and this time in the version B I have maybe let's suppose green button. Cool. And the goal is to see which conversion increases the conversion rate, which version increases the conversion rate. So goal is very simple. I need to test which version is gonna increase the you can say conversion rate, let's say. So CR I'm writing. So that is what we do inside the A/B testing, right? Then why A/B testing is important. Let me try to answer that question. Why A/B testing is important? So A/B testing is important whenever in order to if you want to optimize your website or optimize your offerings, optimize your services, optimize your maybe products. So in that case this is very important thing. By running A/B testing you will be able to understand which version is stable, which version people are liking. So with respect to that you will be able to optimize your products or services. Then in order to run the marketing campaigns also, this A/B testing help you, right? You will be able to understand. Let's suppose if you have segregated your audience into 50% with the new and old features, you can redirect the older people to the 50% of audience to the older version, and then remaining 50% audience to the newer version. And you will be able to run the marketing campaigns for both of the audience, and you will be able to understand how they are interacting with your product or services, and accordingly you can adapt your marketing campaign. If let's suppose people are liking older version, then you can stick to that version as only, instead of changing the new things. So that is it's gonna help you in order to decide your marketing campaign as well, right? It's gonna help you with respect to your product features, what kind of features you should include. It's gonna also help you with pricing strategy, right? If you're gonna show the different pricing strategies to different peoples, and from where you are getting the more conversion, that is gonna basically help you to decide the pricing strategies as well, right? So A/B testing in general, it can help you with a lot of things. If you want to take the decision which is user informed, in that case A/B testing will help you in different ways, right? Okay, now let's answer this question, that how to design and analyze the A/B test, right? So in order to design the A/B testing, we need to follow some steps. So it's kind of 5 to 6 step process. We need to follow it, and let me write it all the steps one by one. So in this step 1, we have to first of all define the goal of the A/B test, right? So it's going to be a business goal, what you want to validate, right? Example, here we have written the test which version is going to increase the CR, which is conversion rate. So the number 1 step is you need to decide the goal, right? So clear business goal. For example, does the new checkout design increases the conversion rate or not? Then in the step 2, right, in the step 2 you are going to define the primary KPIs which you want to track it, right? Primary KPIs according to that business goal. It can be maybe conversion rate, it can be maybe revenue, right? Revenue. It can be maybe CTR, click through rate, right? It can be, you know, maybe bounce rate. If people are coming, how many people are, you know, leaving your website, we call it as a bounce rate. So there are different KPIs, right? So second step, you need to identify all your primary KPIs. Then in the third step, which is step number 3, you have to, you know, form the hypothesis. Okay, you need to form the hypothesis. So here you need to identify the H naught, which is your null hypothesis. Then you have to identify alternate hypothesis, right? That two things you will be deciding over here in the step 3. Then comes step number 4. So in the step 4, you have to divide your audience into a random segment. So you will be saying random assignment of the audience in 2 groups, in the group A and group B. So group A, we also call it as a, remember on the above we have written, it's also called as control group and treatment group, right? So we need to divide our audience randomly into the control group, and group B is our treatment group. Okay, so that happens in the step number 4. And then in the step number 5, what will happen in the step number 5, you are gonna determine the sample size, okay, of your audience or anything. And then you will, important things over here, you will avoid too small or too big, right? Too big sample size over here. Sample size should be, it should like depends on the baseline conversion rate, expected effect size, significance level, and statistical power, usually 80%, right? Then in the step 6, after choosing this, a sample size, in the step 6, you are gonna run the actual experiment. Okay, actual experiment, you are gonna run it. So in the experiment, you will, run this entire thing, like for the user A, you will be showing your version A. For different user, you will be basically showing the different version, and you will be keep doing this for maybe 6 months or 1 year. Okay, because this tenure is important. A/B testing, the result you cannot validate within 1 or 2 months, right? It can happen due to random chance as well. So that's why a sufficient amount of time is required in order to run the experiment. Okay, and for both the versions, you will be requiring same you can say time period. Okay, you cannot say that for version A, I'm gonna run the experiment for 3 months, and version B 6 months, and then you are gonna compare the result. No, that is not it will happen. For both the version, you will be taking the same period amount. Okay, same period, and within that period, you are gonna show the run this experiment. Okay, then after this, you are gonna analyze the result. Okay, this is how you are gonna define the basically design the A/B experiment. Once your designing is done, then you come to analyze the results. Okay, analyze the A/B results. So in order to analyze the A/B results, you are first gonna calculate the conversion rate in the step 1. Okay, here are also some steps involved. So I'm gonna write calculate the conversion rate, or whatever KPI you have tracked, all the things you are gonna calculate it. So calculate the conversion rate or any other KPI which you have decided. Okay, this is the first step. In the second step, let's suppose for group A, I'm giving you example. Let's suppose for group A, the total users were 5,000. Okay, total users were 5,000, and out of those 5,000, 250 people got converted. Okay, 250 people got converted. I mean conversion happened for 250 people. So if you calculate the rate, it's gonna be 5%. Then similarly for group B, you will have same 5,000 users. I mean different, but number is same, 5,000 user. And let's suppose here we are getting 300 people got like converted. So here we will have 6% conversion rate. Okay, now you will see observed increase is 1%. Now in the second part, you have to decide whether this 1% increase is by only a random chance, or there is enough evidence is available. So in that case, in the step 2 comes let me write it. These were, you know, high level step 1. Let me write it over here, step 1, and this is the step 2. In this step 2, you are gonna, you know, perform the statistical test. It can be Z test, T test, all the, you know, ANOVA test, chi-square test, whatever test is suited for your thing. You are gonna decide the test, and within this test you are gonna, you know, check for you know, proportion, right, and you are gonna take the decision over here. If the p value is greater than, you know, your significance value, which is alpha 0.05, in that case you are gonna say that you are gonna reject the null hypothesis. Otherwise you are gonna say you are gonna accept the null hypothesis, right? So this is how you are gonna perform and analyze the A/B testing. And there are some common mistakes as well while, you know, doing this. So let me write it down, those as well. You know, if you're gonna answer this along with this particular thing, your interviewer will be, you know, more happy actually. So you know, try to always give some extra points. So what are some common mistakes we, you know, generally do while designing and analyzing the A/B testing result? So those are like this. The number one is, you know, peeking at result daily and stopping early. So if you are running the A/B experiment, don't analyze your result daily. Don't analyze the results daily. People do this, they take, you know, on a daily basis, they try to analyze the result. For A/B testing to be successful, you have to give some proper amount of time, then only you can say that results are coming. You know, you can say some base is there, it's not a baseless thing, right? So you have to give proper time. Second one is running multiple tests on same user. Running multiple tests on same user, we should avoid this. If you are running one particular A/B testing on some particular audience or on your user, you should avoid running, you know, some other different test. You should at least wait for that test to be finished, then that user will be free from that particular test, then you can run some different test on that particular user. So don't run parallel multiple tests on the same user. Then, you know, ignoring seasonality. This is the biggest mistake I have seen people doing it while doing the A/B testing. You know, so for each and every businesses, some kind of seasonality, you know, occur. You know, if you are doing the business in India or maybe in, you know, in some different countries as well, there are always going to be seasonality. So that's why, you know, A/B testing should have considering those seasonality. You know, maybe in month of June or July your sales are going up, and maybe in month of December it is going down in India, but it is happening reverse in maybe USA. So you need to consider that seasonality, right, whenever you are evaluating and, you know, conducting this A/B testing. Okay. And then, you know, changing experiment midway. So changing experiment midway, this is the second biggest mistake. People, you know, decide something, they start A/B testing, and then in mid they change the experiment. Okay, so that is also not desirable. We should avoid all of these things in order to, you know, successfully conduct the A/B testing and successfully able to evaluate the result and infer the result. I hope you are able to understand, you know, the meaning of A/B testing, how to design one, how to analyze one, and, you know, some common mistakes which you can avoid it. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hello everybody, welcome back to Business Analytics interview series. This is day 40 and here is the question for the day. Explain the difference between descriptive and inferential statistics. Okay, so you can answer this question in this way, that descriptive statistics summarizes and describe the features of the data set. It answers what does the data look like, and it does not make predictions or generalizes beyond the data. Okay, so in the descriptive statistics, descriptive stats, we are gonna, you know, look the behavior of the data. Okay, we are gonna, you know, summarize and describe the data. We are not gonna, you know, generalize the data. That is the thing. Whereas in the inferential statistics, inferential statistics uses sample data to make conclusion about the larger population data. So in the, you know, inferential statistics, as the name suggests, you are going to infer the result. How you are going to infer the result? So you are going to take this sample data, and then you are going to perform some kind of testing, and then you are going to infer the result from that sample data, and you are going to generalize that result for the overall population data. That's the difference between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Okay, now let's compare even further. In the descriptive stats, the tools used are mean. We do mean, median, mode. We try to calculate all of these things, right? Let me write it in the bullet format: mean, median, mode. Then we try to find it out the range, variance, right, covariance, standard deviation, so SD, right? These are the things we try to find it out. Also we try to calculate percentiles, right? And then tables, charts, figures, right, plots. These things we try to find it out inside the basically descriptive statistics. If I give you the example, okay, so let's suppose if you are analyzing the monthly sales data, right? So in that, what we will be interested in, maybe we will be interested in finding out the average sales of the month, right? Let's say a example, if I give you 50,000, so it will have the pure number, right? 50,000. Maybe I'm interested in highest sales, right? Those kind of numbers. Let's give the any number, X number, okay? And then maybe standard deviation of the entire data, and let's suppose if it is 8,000 or Y value, any value. So this kind of things we are more interested in the descriptive statistics, right? Here we don't create any kind of conclusion, right? By looking the sample data and then making conclusion on the bigger, you can say, population data. So those comes under the descriptive statistics. Whereas if I talk about the inferential statistics, so over here we use tools, something like called as hypothesis testing, right? So we use hypothesis testing over here as a tool. We use confidence interval, right? Confidence intervals, we try to find it out. We try to find it out the p value. We try to perform the A/B testing over here, A/B testing. Similarly, we try to perform maybe regression analysis as well, So these are the different tools we use inside the inferential statistics, right? If I give you the example that let's suppose you survey 1000 customers and find 60% prefer product A, so I can infer that approximately 60% of all customers, let me write it as well. Let's say I survey 1000 customers, and I found that 60% of them like product A, or prefer product A. So in that case I can say 60% of all customers, they prefer product A with some margin of error. Okay, so I can generalize it that like 60% like the product A. In that case I can generalize that, okay, for all of this let's suppose if I have 10,000 customer base, and I have surveyed for only 1000. So even though I have only surveyed the 1000, I can infer that result that out of this 10,000 customers, 60% of them like product A with some margin of error here and there, right? So that is we do inside the inferential statistics. Now if I here if I write the purpose, so purpose over here in the descriptive statistics is just summarize the data, or find it out the stats on the data. Whereas if you talk about in the inferential statistics, so in the inferential statistics the goal is different. We want to make prediction, right? We want to make prediction, we want to generalize it. That's the goal over here, right? Similarly, if I compare it with respect to maybe data scope, so here it's only you can say we are only going to compare it on observed data, whatever data is present to us in for the observation. In the descriptive statistics, we are going to considering only that data. We are going to calculate our calculation with respect to that observed data. Whereas in the inferential statistics, we are going to talk about sample data, and then we are going to generalize it for the overall, you can say, population data, right? Here there is no probability involved. Okay, there is no probability. Whatever is there, it is gonna for sure, but here probability is gonna be involved, right? And yeah, so these are the main differences between the inferential and descriptive statistics. If I give you the BA perspective over here, so you can say descriptive statistics with respect to BA, what were last quarter sales? If I want to answer this question, that what was the last quarter sales, that comes under the descriptive. Similarly, what is customer churn rate? If I want to answer this, what is customer churn rate, I can answer this with respect to descriptive statistics. But when it comes to the inferential statistics, right, so in this case I can answer this kind of question, that will the new pricing increases the sales, right? Will the new pricing of the product increases the sales? So here we are trying to predict the future, right? That if you are gonna give the new pricing of this product, whether it's gonna increase the sales or not, right? Similarly, if I want to answer it like, is campaign B better than campaign A? Is, right, campaign B better than campaign A? If I want to answer this question, again I need inferential statistics. Let me give you one more example. If churn increase in next month or not, if churn increase in next month or not, so that is also comes under the inferential statistics, right? So here we try to deal with the future value of the businesses. We try to answer the future questions, whereas in the descriptive statistics we try to answer the past questions, or the events that already been occurred, and we have the data for that. So that is the difference between descriptive and inferential statistics. I hope you are able to understand it. I'm going to see you in the next one.